Following a devastating betrayal by someone he had considered an ally, he met his final end and lost everything. 20 years pass before he regains consciousness, only to discover he's now trapped inside the body of some poor, malnourished guy who doesn't have a single advantage in life. What bothers him most deeply is witnessing how everyone now celebrates the person who betrayed him, as if that traitor has become some sort of hero. He possesses complete knowledge of every detail within the tower now, which means he's fully prepared to enter again and attempt this challenge one more time. He was completely focused and determined, planning to shock absolutely everyone with abilities and techniques that nobody else could possibly possess. Whether he'll truly succeed in getting his revenge remains a complete mystery that nobody can predict. Obstacles and challenges keep appearing to block his path at every possible opportunity. The moment has arrived to discover what actually happened during these events. His location was the 8th floor of the tower, positioned directly in the center of these frozen wasteland fields where absolutely everything remained covered in ice. A massive formation of armored knights emerged, advancing steadily through the punishing snowstorm, all of them following behind this leader with blonde hair at the front. Without any warning whatsoever, the commander raised his hand into the air, and the entire group immediately halted their movement. Kazuki, the person in charge of the Blue Zone Guild who holds the 6th position in the overall rankings, informed everyone that they had regrouped together to hunt down the powerful guardian protecting the 8th floor. Despite the fact that the entire team was working together for this important raid, Kazuki emphasized clearly, nobody should become lazy or careless. If they couldn't successfully defeat this powerful boss enemy, advancing upward to the 9th floor would remain nothing more than an impossible dream. Kazuki noticed someone approaching through the heavily falling snow around them. Without any advance notice, a group of skilled warriors appeared, every single one of them looking extremely serious and ready for combat. At the front of this group was a man who immediately grabbed everyone's attention, radiating this powerful presence and possessing these striking blue eyes. Subaru Narukami arrived on the scene, commanding the Blue Eyes Guild as their leader. He held the #1 ranking position and kept his identity concealed behind a mask decorated with elaborate golden patterns. Kazuki had already arrived at the location when Subaru made his entrance, welcoming him warmly with a friendly smile spreading across his face. Subaru attempted to apologize for arriving late, but Kazuki simply laughed good-naturedly and mentioned that Subaru had actually arrived before everyone else anyway. Subaru continued wondering internally about the reason the Muram Alliance even bothered showing up for this particular raid. Kazuki simply informed him that he would be taking the leadership role for the attack, jokingly suggesting that the Muram group probably just wanted to collect whatever valuable items remained after the battle. Subaru ignored the comment completely and simply extended his hand toward Kazuki in a gesture of cooperation. The man presented Kazuki with this absolutely incredible item known as the Archangel's Pool. This wasn't some ordinary treasure that drops randomly. This particular item possessed the power to restore your stamina levels halfway back up precisely when you're on the verge of complete exhaustion. Kazuki genuinely hadn't expected to receive something so valuable. Subaru became serious for a moment, explaining to Kazuki that he was absolutely committed to ensuring this raid succeeded, no matter what sacrifices it required. As a precaution in case the situation turned dangerous, he gave Kazuki the item, treating it like an emergency backup plan. Kazuki, maintaining his relaxed demeanor, questioned whether Subaru intended on returning to Blue Land after the battle finished, mentioning he could simply return the item at that time. That statement affected Kazuki deeply, and he simply stared at Subaru without speaking any words. Subaru placed his hand on Kazuki's shoulder, explaining clearly that if Kazuki chose not to return home, he could keep the item permanently. It wasn't a problem at all. Unexpectedly, however, they both experienced this overwhelming pressure, suddenly realizing the enemy had arrived much earlier than they anticipated. The powerful guardian appeared on the 8th floor, rising high above everything, while the violent storm continued swirling violently around its massive form. Kazuki refused to hold anything back. He screamed loudly enough that everyone could hear him clearly, ordering the entire team to prepare themselves to fight immediately. The enemy finally revealed its true identity, a massive sea dragon named Hydra, possessing multiple heads and crackling intensely with electrical lightning. Subaru simply observed this creature, completely unimpressed by its appearance, thinking it looked genuinely hideous and disgusting. At the same time, dark black and shining gold energy began gathering and swirling around his clenched fist, preparing for whatever challenge was approaching. Immediately at that moment, a system notification appeared informing him that lightning energy was flowing actively through his entire body. Subaru remained standing there, radiating complete confidence, essentially announcing to everyone that the monster would meet its end today. The dragon began charging up an enormous attack, preparing itself to unleash devastating blasts simultaneously from every single one of its multiple mouths. Kazuki yelled out to warn everyone that a breath attack was approaching and commanded them to take cover immediately. However, Subaru simply continued moving forward calmly, drawing his sword from its sheath. behaving as if he had complete control over the situation and didn't need to seek protection. Kazuki just observed Subaru carefully, feeling completely confused by his actions, and couldn't stop himself from questioning what Subaru's strategy was. Subaru moved in quickly and decisively, swinging his sword powerfully and striking with tremendous force behind the blow. His devastating attack cut through the air rapidly and crashed directly into the dragon's incoming move, triggering a massive explosion of raw energy. The monster's attack simply disappeared completely, and where it once existed, there remained this enormous scar carved straight down the center of the entire battlefield. Kazuki dropped down behind him, avoiding the dangerous blast. He couldn't stop himself from smiling, thinking about how the veteran warrior always behaved identically, regardless of what situation was happening around him. Subaru's team remained positioned in the rear, feeling completely amazed at how the events unfolded. The witch felt excited about how all their training sessions had produced results. Meanwhile, one of the warriors simply appeared irritated, feeling pretty frustrated that he didn't get his opportunity to land the opening strike. The girl questioned what Subaru had just handed to Kazuki moments earlier. Subaru kept things mysterious, simply responding that she would discover what it was before too long. Subaru glanced over toward his team members, confirming whether everyone was prepared for action. He informed them that the moment had finally arrived to defeat that dragon once and for all. Everyone drew their weapons out and prepared themselves to assault the 8th floor, understanding that it was essentially a living nightmare to survive. Kazuki remained positioned in the back area, simply observing everything happening before him. He didn't speak a single word, but a slight smirk slowly appeared across his face as he watched how everyone was behaving like close friends. While the captain informed Kazuki that the team was positioned exactly according to their strategy, Kazuki acknowledged him with some appreciation and prepared himself to move out as well. His assistant, who was still concealing his identity behind his mask, responded immediately and offered him good luck wishes for the upcoming battle. Kazuki observed his followers responding almost instantaneously, moving around far quicker than their normal speed, while the healing specialist, holding the staff, positioned himself directly in front of him, creating a barrier in his path. The situation escalated rapidly as everyone charged directly toward the enormous dragon, its deafening roars vibrating throughout the entire arena, while it launched devastating attacks. She sprinted forward without any hesitation whatsoever and instructed her team to attack with maximum effort and dedicate everything they possessed. She sliced through the creature effortlessly, making it appear almost as if she was simply enjoying a casual stroll through the park. The Ice Mage grumbled quietly to himself about how incredibly intense the conditions were becoming during this battle. The mounting pressure was genuinely beginning to overwhelm him. During the ongoing fight, a warrior surrounded by this intense red energy rushed ahead aggressively. He was so completely focused, even creating a wager with his teammates to determine who could inflict the most damage on the creature. He moved forward and simply delivered a powerful strike, keeping it direct and straightforward. Toshiya showed zero hesitation. He was completely committed to the wager. The agreement was straightforward. Whoever ended up losing would be responsible for paying for dinner. He lunged forward and slashed his sword rapidly, cutting deeply into the dragon's flank before anyone could even react. With one powerful swing, he successfully eliminated one of the dragon's multiple heads, then glanced toward Shino to inform her that the severed head was falling in her direction. Shino prepared herself to perform her spell, giving him a brief glance that essentially communicated she had the situation under control. She wanted him to maintain his momentum forward and not worry about what she was handling. She conjured this massive pink magical barrier, halting the dragon's head completely in its trajectory. She appeared totally concentrated, as if defending against attacks was simply her natural role. Precisely when the situation was becoming most intense, Kazuki appeared unexpectedly behind Shino's position. He spoke her name, his tone completely emotionless and icy, and questioned whether she could defend against this particular attack too. Shino became paralyzed, entirely surprised and unprepared. Kazuki showed no hesitation whatsoever. He simply thrust his sword directly through her back and completely through her chest. He appeared totally indifferent, as if he'd witnessed this exact scenario countless times previously and believed their overconfidence was honestly their greatest weakness and fatal flaw. Subaru spun around, his voice shaky as he tried to say her name. He just stood there, not really processing what was right in front of him. Shino collapsed right in front of Kazuki, her body completely still and covered in blood. Kazuki just stood there, staring down with this creepy grin that would make anyone's skin crawl. Kazuki, covered in blood, glanced over at Subaru with this wild grin. He was clearly hyped up, making sure Subaru didn't zone out right now. Subaru just froze up for a second, his mind racing about why Kazuki would turn on him like that, all while the dragon kept coming at him. Subaru still remembers the moment those weird system messages popped up. Out of nowhere, the tower picked him, told him to get ready, and made it clear that something big was about to kick off. Nobody really knew what the tower meant when it first popped up in the middle of space. No one could tell if it was about to mess everything up or if it was actually something good. Nobody really gets what that message actually means, but everyone just keeps doing what it says, like they're stuck on autopilot. Everyone's out here trying to be the first to hit the top of this tower. Nobody's made it yet. People show up from all sorts of places, like Earth, Miram, and even crazier worlds nobody's heard of. Guys from all kinds of worlds keep showing up, each carrying their own goals. Every day they push themselves to climb the tower, not slowing down for anything. Reality hit hard. The fight was over, but all around Subaru, his friends were just gone, bodies everywhere, blood on the ground. He was the only one left standing, completely alone in the middle of it all. Subaru was catching his breath after taking down Hydra, the Red Dragon. He glanced around, kind of annoyed at his teammates for not dipping out like he told them to. Deep down, he wished they'd just listened and bailed when he said so. He slumped down, totally wiped out, staring at the beast's body. Everyone said it couldn't be beaten, but they finally pulled it off. Winning didn't really feel like a win when he looked around and saw his friends down everywhere. He couldn't help thinking they were idiots for not waiting on him. He hadn't told them they could just check out like that. System warnings popped up saying Subaru was poisoned, so he couldn't heal on his own. His exhaustion was maxed out, and as he lay there, he started thinking about what might go down if he actually made it back. The system made it clear, if his fatigue hit 100, that was game over. Hearing that, his eyes fired up with straight-up anger and pure determination. Kazuki walked up without showing any emotion, calling Subaru Lightning Lord like it was nothing. Subaru just stared at him, thrown off by the whole thing, wondering why Kazuki would even do something like this. Subaru lost his cool and pressed Kazuki hard, wanting a straight-up answer. Kazuki walked up to him and started talking about how he'd been working toward this moment for a whole decade. He pointed out that, out of everyone, Subaru was the one who'd really get what this meant. Kazuki leaned in, his face close, rocking that smug grin. He let Subaru know this was the only shot he had at beating him. He straight up owned up to messing with Subaru on purpose, using his own squad from the Blue Eyes Guild as bait to keep Subaru busy. If he hadn't pulled that move, those guys probably would have gotten in his way. Kazuki finally snapped, letting all his anger out. Everything Subaru had done to him had been building up, and now it just exploded. He basically told everyone that he'd rather have the world than keep his friend, not even caring how wild that sounded. He took a step back, pretending to be all sad, and let everyone know it was over. There was no way out this time. Kazuki pulled out the Archangel's pool, basically flexing that he wasn't giving it back like they'd planned. He just watched, kind of satisfied, knowing the Blue Eyes Guild was done for now that their leader was gone. He was on his way out, barely looking at Subaru, just saying not to get sad since he'd still be remembered as a hero in the history books. He knew he wouldn't be around to see it himself, but that didn't really bother him. Subaru shot him this sarcastic grin, basically calling out how Kazuki never listens until it's way too late. He knew at this point there was no way to make it out alive. Subaru just wasn't about to let himself go out like that. Even when things looked rough, he dug deep, fired up whatever powers he still had, and got ready to fight back. Kazuki just froze for a second, then whipped around, totally losing it at what he saw. Subaru was back on his feet, holding the Aeolus fan, the one known for stirring up insane wind. Subaru swung the fan with some real energy, letting everyone know it still packed a punch. He kept Kazuki guessing, not giving up any info. His eyes lit up, showing he was dead set on using the fan's last 4 shots to flip things around. Subaru remembered the last 4 guys from his guild who were still sticking with him. He tapped into the wind, blasting them way off the battlefield and out of danger, making sure they got out safe. Kazuki caught on real quick and started yelling at his guys, freaking out and telling them to go after the ones escaping before they got away. The Miram fighters got ready to follow the command, moving out without hesitation. Subaru blocked their path, not letting anyone through. He started building up a ball of lightning in his hand, basically telling them they had to deal with him right then and there. His fatigue hit 95, and thunder started rumbling in the sky, signaling that the Lightning Lord's power was about to run out. A massive blast of golden lightning crashed down, lighting up the whole arena and basically turning it into total chaos. Kazuki glanced over at him, a bit tense with a nervous grin, thinking to himself how stubborn this guy was. Dude just never gives up. Subaru's stamina was almost completely gone, sitting at a brutal 96. Even though he was totally wiped, he pushed himself to charge ahead, weapon in hand. He looked around, feeling the heavy vibe in the room, and couldn't help but wonder what kind of reward Kazuki promised these guys to make them go up against a beast like him. Subaru steps up in front of all the enemies, letting them know straight up that going after him is basically signing up for game over. His eyes lit up, and even though he was covered in cuts and bruises, he made it clear nobody was getting off that battlefield unless he said so. The soldiers clocked that things just got real, like life or death real. No time to mess around, they grabbed their weapons and charged at him, locked in and ready to throw down with everything they had. Subaru moved fast, blocking every sword that came at him with his spear. His skills were on point, making it look almost easy. He kept reminding himself that guys like this wouldn't usually take an L against him if things were normal. He kept thinking about Kazuki jumping in, because if that happened, the whole fight could flip instantly. As he kept fighting, he felt a bit better knowing his teammates had already dipped out far enough. Still, what really had him on edge was how wiped out he was. His fatigue was almost maxed at 97%, and that was way more dangerous than anything else right then. Subaru blocked another swing from a soldier and knew he couldn't drag this fight out any longer. Even with his body almost running on empty, fatigue cranked up to 98%, he kept throwing himself into the fight, pushing through every bit of pain that tried to hold him back. Out of nowhere, someone landed a heavy hit on him, making him stumble. That was all the soldiers needed. They rushed him right away. Blades came at him from all directions, cutting through the chaos while blood splattered everywhere and the soldiers were yelling nonstop. The soldiers went wild, pumped up and celebrating hard. To them, it felt like they'd just pulled off the impossible and actually taken down Subaru Narukami. Right when everyone was still trying to process what just happened, Subaru spoke up, his voice cutting through the silence. His eyes looked wild, almost like they were glowing with some gold power, as he questioned who exactly they thought they'd just taken out. Lightning shot out from his body out of nowhere, blasting the soldiers around him and sending them flying like they weighed nothing. He watched as the attackers dropped all around him, then his energy just gave out and he hit his knees, totally wiped. The other soldiers bailed fast, freaked out and mumbling about how this dude just won't stay down, like he's some kind of monster you can't finish off. Kazuki stood back, watching everything go down with a cold grin. He honestly found it funny that anyone thought Subaru's time would be over that easy. Right then, his fatigue meter shot up to 99%. The screen flashed a red warning. If it hit 100, it was game over for him. Subaru pushed through, barely holding on, and let Kazuki know that out of everyone, he should be the first to remember how Subaru always comes out on top in the end. Subaru let out a loud yell as he launched his final spear, locking in the win. The spear, covered in lightning, shot forward insanely fast, tearing through the air straight at its target. Kazuki had the Archangel's pool jewel in his hand, pretty much chill about staying alive. He looked over at Subaru and just dropped a sarcastic nod, like he didn't really care. He just stood there, frozen, as the spear smashed right into the jewel and shattered it. In that instant, his whole plan for making it out got wrecked. Subaru's vision started to blur, but he knew he'd pulled it off. Even though he looked wrecked and couldn't actually watch Kazuki go down, that last move landed just right. It was pitch black all around, and Subaru found himself questioning what would happen to him next. He was right on the edge, not sure if he'd ever get out or if he was just going to be stuck in that emptiness for good. Out of nowhere, this nasty smell hit him hard, and then he started catching this weird sound in the background. He woke up and realized he was stuffed inside a metal trash bin, surrounded by garbage in some nasty alley. For a second, he actually wondered if he'd ended up in hell. Out of nowhere, this bright blue screen popped up in front of him. It had some random name on it, Subaru Hosoi, level 1. He just froze and stared, not really believing what he was seeing. Out of nowhere, he starts remembering stuff like these dudes clowning him for being an earthling and calling him weak, which honestly just hit him hard. For him, getting roasted like that was way out of line. Everyone just stared him down, totally judging. They clowned on him for how he was, always bringing up how he could never measure up to Subaru Narukami from 20 years back. Subaru froze when a voice popped up in his head saying he'd died 20 years back. He stared into the window, and that's when it really hit him. He wasn't in his own body anymore. He couldn't believe what was happening and kept thinking this had to be some kind of messed up dream. Suddenly, he panicked and scrambled out of the garbage container as fast as he could. He dropped to the floor totally out of breath. Right next to him, he spotted a tablet. Turns out it was a player kit. That's when it hit him. He could use it to figure out what was actually going on around him. He quickly started looking up the Blue Eyes Guild online. Right away, the search results were all about the Blue Zone, saying it took over after the Blue Eyes Guild. People were already wondering why it seemed kind of weak now, even though it was supposed to be carrying on Subaru Narukami's legacy. He was scrolling through the news when he spotted Guildmaster Kazuki talking big about winning the next tournament. He just shook his head, thinking there's no way that's happening. He looked at the news photo and spotted Kazuki, who looked way older and had an eye patch now. That's when it hit him. Kazuki, the traitor, actually survived that fight. His mind flashed back to that one night with Kazuki, both of them just chilling on a rooftop. Kazuki opened up and said they weren't always on opposite sides. He also shared that he wanted out of the Blue Eyes Guild. Subaru didn't see this coming at all, especially when Kazuki suddenly wanted him to break the news to everyone else. Even though Subaru always saw Kazuki as one of his closest boys, Kazuki just brushed it off and told him he'd get why soon enough. Kazuki told him he'd always have his back, no matter what happened, but years down the line, Kazuki ended up starting a guild and actually named it after that inside joke they used to laugh about. Subaru walked down the street, scrolling through the news on his phone. He couldn't help but think about that guy who called his guild Blue Zone. After all these years, like 2 decades, the dude was still chilling on the 9th floor, barely making any moves. Subaru found it kind of funny how nothing really changed for him. The search came to a halt right in front of a photo showing off a massive building called Subaru Narukami Memorial Hall. Seeing that, he froze for a second, totally caught off guard. He headed over to the building, not really trusting what he was seeing right in front of him. He was honestly surprised the building turned out way bigger and fancier than he ever thought it would be. He walked in and saw a giant photo of himself right in the middle of the hall. It honestly got to him. He couldn't help but wonder why they had to remember him like that. He checked out all the pictures and statues of Kazuki, trying to figure out what Kazuki was really up to with all of this. He kept hearing people hype him up, calling him the Blue Eyes Guild's hero and saying he was the closest guy to reaching the top of the tower. This spot was made to keep his name and his buddies' stories alive, so nobody would forget what they did. Watching the video of Kazuki dressed up in a sharp suit at the ceremony, he could feel anger build up inside him. Kazuki stood there with a forced smile, acting all proud as he let everyone know that Subaru and the Blue Eyes Guild were basically done for. They said Blue Zone was the only one who really carried on their noble spirit. That hit Subaru hard. He got mad, fists clenched, and someone just told him to shut up. Subaru hated Kazuki more than anyone. It wasn't enough for Kazuki to just kill him. He even messed with Subaru's memory after. Subaru made up his mind right then. He was going to keep living just to be the thing Kazuki was scared of. Kazuki kept recording, making it super clear that Subaru was gone for good and wouldn't be coming back. He knew he'd remember him for the rest of his life. Subaru walked up to where Kazuki's ghostly figure was, totally set on wiping out that fake memory and starting over. He stared straight ahead, determined not to let Kazuki fool him again. He was locked in, ready to catch any tricks before they even started. He promised himself he wouldn't mess up this second shot at life. As he stood there, lost in his thoughts, some random kid suddenly ran into him from behind. The boy dropped to the ground, so Subaru rushed over to check on him, making sure he was alright. Subaru stopped in his tracks when the kid looked up. He spotted his old mask sitting right on the boy's face, and for a second he just couldn't move. Right then, Minato's parents showed up, moving fast to make sure he was okay. Subaru was already there, letting them know it was nothing serious, just a small bump. Subaru stopped dead when he realized the family ahead and pretty much everyone around had on the same mask he used to wear. That hit him hard, and he just stood there not saying a word. He ran his hand over his face, totally stunned, just trying to process the wild stuff happening around him. Everything he saw felt unreal, like, were people really doing these weird rituals right in front of him? Nobody was without a mask. Some had them on, others held theirs like it actually meant something, almost like they were at some big, important event. Right then, Subaru remembered how Kazuki used to troll him, saying he'd still be a legend even if he died. Now, watching what was happening, Subaru realized those words were actually playing out, and it honestly stung a bit. He figured out that Kazuki had messed with the past, twisting his own betrayal into some fake hero story. He saw this massive photo of himself rocking his signature mask, set up with a bunch of candles and flowers all around. The whole thing looked like some epic funeral setup straight out of a movie. Subaru finally caught on that these ceremonies were just a setup. Kazuki had planned it all just to grab the spotlight from Blue Eyes and make himself look like the hero. He was zoned out just looking at all the flowers stacked up when something blue and kinda electric popped up in the middle of the bouquets and instantly grabbed his attention. He shoved past everyone in the crowd, not caring at all about people yelling at him or trying to stop him. Subaru tuned everyone out and pushed his way up to the front. When he got there, he dropped to his knees in front of the altar stacked with flowers. He spotted a bright blue flower giving off this weird, soft energy. Right away, he recognized it. It was Shigure Asagiri's. Just seeing it had him surprised and locked in, like he knew exactly what it meant. On the roof of a building right by the square, two people were just hanging out, keeping an eye on everything below. Shigure looked down at the crowd and was honestly glad nothing wild went down this year. His buddy shot back with a bit of sarcasm, calling out how wild they'd been acting. He mentioned that if they'd shown up just a minute later, they would have run straight into Blue Zone Guild's crew. His buddy was tired, thinking if they really had to go through this risky tradition every year just to drop off flowers. Shigure wouldn't let it go, saying it could really come in clutch if things ever went south. Shigure let out a quiet sigh and stared at the ground, hoping Subaru would finally notice the flowers he kept giving. His buddy wasn't buying it and straight up asked if he actually thought Subaru was still out there. He just shrugged and said he hadn't seen Subaru's body himself, so he wasn't ready to call it yet. She just kept it real and said that if Kazuki was still around, he would have already tracked them down way before they ever got to Subaru. He made it clear he was mad, saying Subaru wouldn't have left them hanging for 20 years if he was still around. Subaru rushed out of the building, breathing hard with the flower still in his hand. He knew for sure now, no second guessing it. Shigure was still out there. Subaru was chilling on his bed in this cramped, kinda depressing room, scrolling through his tablet. He couldn't help but roast how broke the guy who used to live there must have been. He checked everywhere online for any sign of those blue eyes or anything about Guild, but came up with nothing. Still, the flower sitting right in front of him was all the proof he needed. Shigure was definitely still out there. He figured out he was still breathing, but for the last 20 years he had to stay hidden and keep a low profile, basically living undercover the whole time. Subaru quickly figured out that Kazuki was behind why they vanished. He knew Kazuki too well. There's no way Kazuki would let anyone stick around who actually knew what went down. He thought back to that huge blast from the last fight, trying to figure out if Shigure was the only one who made it, or if the others got lucky too. That's when Subaru snapped back to where he was now. With Kazuki still running the show, even thinking about reaching out to his old team would basically be game over for him. He glanced out the window, realizing he just wasn't strong enough right now and jumping into things would get him killed. Checking out his own hands, he locked in on the fact that step 1 had to be getting his power back. Nothing else mattered until that happened. After using what Subaru Hosoi remembered, 2 days went by just getting ready. Now it was finally time for the first round of training to see who was good enough. Subaru was there, sword in hand, locked in and ready to go. He stared down at the blade, locked in and ready to do whatever it took. All he cared about was making it out alive. Nothing else mattered right now. As long as everyone was still breathing, there was always a shot they'd cross paths again. The test hall looked straight out of ancient Rome, kind of like one of those huge amphitheaters you'd see in old movies. Hyuga, the massive supervisor, just stood there, arms crossed, watching everyone like he'd seen it all before. He looked serious but honestly kind of over it, barely even reacting to anything going on. One of the guys was out of breath after taking down a monster. Hyuga just looked at him, totally unfazed, and pointed out that he barely pulled it off and made it clear things weren't done yet. He was out of breath, still catching his breath from the last round, when the supervisor looked over and asked if he was down to go again. Out of nowhere, a system pop-up showed up saying that for every step forward, another goblin would spawn, but the rewards would get better too. The guy saw this and instantly got nervous. He backed off fast, yelling that there was no way he was about to take on 3 goblins at the same time. That just sounded insane to him. Hugo got super annoyed with the dude yelling and started warning him he might mess up big time. The guy, not wanting to lose, started begging, totally sure he had this round in the bag. Hugo stared down at the goblin bodies, clearly unimpressed. He couldn't help but think it was lame that he had to deal with someone this weak just because his own level wasn't high enough. Hugo thought back to how Isaac von Reinhardt powered through to stage 20. Out of everyone there, Isaac was the only one who really stood out and looked like he might actually go somewhere. He stared at his tablet, low-key frustrated, thinking this training was a mess now, and the new guys just weren't cutting it anymore. Out of nowhere, footsteps started getting louder, pulling his focus to Subaru, who was headed his way like he owned the place. Watching him, he couldn't help but think how the guy's name really carried some serious weight, even if he didn't totally look the part. Hyuga looked at Subaru, pretty doubtful about whether Subaru could actually pull it off, but Subaru just nodded, staying cool and not making a big deal out of it. Right when he got the pop-up about 2 goblins showing up, Hugo had just started the test when a sudden blast of air hit him from the side. The supervisor whipped his head to the right, totally caught off guard, thinking something just zoomed by him. Subaru stood there, blood all around him, looking pretty satisfied. After grinding for 2 days to see just how far his body could go, he knew he'd made the right call. He woke up in someone else's body and quickly realized he could do things way beyond what he thought was possible. As soon as the system brought up the next challenge, he was ready. He didn't even hesitate, he just made it clear he wanted to speed things up since he wasn't about to waste any time. Yuga just stood there, eyes wide, watching goblin heads get launched through the air. The arena was a total mess, with monster bodies scattered everywhere. The supervisor just stood there, completely thrown off by what he was seeing. He started paying close attention to how Subaru moved, noticing that every swing had a purpose and none of them were just random. He stayed locked in, watching every little move his opponent made and figuring out what was coming next, then made his move before the other guy even saw it coming. Hyuga started to see that this skill was on another level, way past just being good at fencing. Deep down, he knew he couldn't pull off moves with that kind of accuracy no matter how hard he tried. Hyuga glanced over at Subaru, who was rocking that confident grin. Honestly, for a second he thought there was no way anyone could pull this off unless the guy was actually Subaru Narukami in real life. Subaru kept taking down goblins one after another, not holding back at all. He moved so fast that blood was flying everywhere around him. A notification popped up, letting everyone know the 49th stage was done and asking if Subaru wanted to take on the final boss. Subaru's eyes lit up. He was seriously locked in. He swiped the sweat off his face, barely reacting as he took on the challenge. Out of nowhere, the ground cracked wide open and this massive hand burst out, slamming down hard. That's when everyone knew the boss had shown up, with rocks flying all over the place. Supervisor Hyuga freaked out, yelling for Subaru to stop. He couldn't believe Subaru was actually going this far, especially since he wasn't even the real Narukami. He gave him a dead serious warning to back off if he wanted to stay alive, while Subaru held his ground right in the middle of all the goblins, staring down their massive boss. The Goblin King showed up, his presence totally intense, clearly pissed off after picking up on all the sacrifices that went down in the last 49 stages. Hyuga kept yelling, trying to get Subaru to back off before things got out of hand, saying going up against the Goblin King like this was just straight up reckless. The supervisor looked at the whole thing and honestly thought it was a lost cause. He knew that, no matter how good the player was, going up against the monster with that kind of stat difference was just impossible. The gap was just too big. Subaru got it. His stats just weren't enough to hurt that monster. No matter what he did, he wasn't about to break through its tough shell. Even with everything going on, Subaru wasn't about to give up. Out of nowhere, he just dropped his sword, letting it hit the ground. Hugo couldn't believe it when he saw Subaru just toss his only weapon aside. For a second, he thought Subaru had totally lost it. The beast lunged in, going all out, but Subaru had already spotted something weird about the arena early on and planned to use it to his advantage. The boss froze when he realized a needle was stuck in his leg. Subaru showed up on the ground, kneeling and gripping some sharp needles. He looked up at the monster, throwing a sarcastic grin, kind of just daring the thing to admit it was caught off guard. Subaru challenged the monster, basically putting it all on the line to see who would go down first. Before he could even get close, the guy was ready to light him up, making it clear he'd get lit up like a beehive if he tried anything. Subaru's eyes lit up, glowing blue, and he got ready to follow through on his warning. The needles shot out insanely fast, hitting the monster right in the eyes and face, every shot landing exactly where it was supposed to. The Goblin King suddenly let out a straight-up wild scream, louder than anything before. The blind monster lost it, swinging his massive axe all over the place and smashing the ground. Subaru stayed quick on his feet, weaving around every attack like he'd done this 1,000 times. Subaru dropped to the ground, eyes locked on his opponent, staying ready for whatever was coming next. He thought back to stuff he'd learned before about how spinning something can actually make your throws way stronger. He thought back to the time Miss Reina called him out for throwing the wrong way, remembering exactly how she explained it. She showed him that even something as basic as a fountain pen could turn deadly if you knew exactly how to handle it, like finding its balance point and using it right. Subaru took what he learned and went straight for the monster's weak spots, landing every hit right where it counted, almost like he was sniping the bullseye every single time. Blood poured from the giant's neck, and his body was covered in needles. He could barely stay on his feet, struggling to keep it together. Subaru stood there, totally locked in, reminding himself that the harder you twist, the more power you get, and if you want to nail your shot, you can't overthink it or pause. He kept it to himself, but those moves? Reina was the one who showed him how it's done. Even now, he knew there's no way he'd pull them off this clean without her training. Hugo just stared, totally caught off guard. He realized all the goblin bodies and those deadly needles from before were still lying around since the test wasn't actually over yet. What really messed with him was seeing Subaru use this loophole, something the supervisor never even thought twice about. He noticed Subaru wasn't just swinging his sword to take down goblins. Instead, Subaru was locked in, using all kinds of hidden weapons he grabbed from the arena, tossing them at weak spots like he'd done this 1,000,000 times. Hyuga started sweating hard, just talking about how insane Subaru's skills were. He paused for a second, realizing that calling it genius didn't even come close to what he just witnessed as the Goblin King was down to his last breath. The Goblin King crashed to the ground, making a ton of noise. With the fight finally over, Subaru just walked over and grabbed his sword, staying chill the whole time. Subaru stood over the Goblin King's body, not looking angry or anything. He just handled it, no drama, and made sure the job was done. Suddenly, notifications popped up on the screen, letting everyone know he just took down the boss and cleared the 50th stage of the tutorial for the first time. Subaru swiped his forehead, annoyed at how tough this monster was for a training stage. He couldn't believe the tutorial would throw something like this at him. Right after that, a bunch of notifications popped up, letting him know he just leveled up and scored some credit and achievement points. The real win, though, was unlocking the tutorial shop, but it was only available while he was still in this stage. Subaru just stared at his screen, not believing he actually had 2,425 achievement points stacked up. That number was way higher than anything he'd ever seen before, even back in his old life. He walked around the store, checking out the stuff on display. Most of the regular tools were going for anywhere between 5 to 200 points, so with all the points he had, he realized he was pretty much set. He spotted this demon sword he'd never seen before, and it instantly had him locked in. It was crazy rare and sitting at a price of 1,000 points. Using it would drain both health and soul, but the trade-off was a big boost in cutting power. Turns out, some magic blacksmith who messed up ended up making it. Subaru thought about taking the offer since it sounded awesome, but then he remembered his lightning power drained his health too. Using the sword could seriously mess him up if he wasn't careful. He checked out the Holy Sword Miranda, saw it cost 1,400 points, and noticed it could keep him going longer in a fight and help with tiredness. Right then, he knew he needed something safe like that, not some wild demon sword. Subaru got stuck, not really sure if he should go with the demonic sword's insane power or pick the holy sword that kept him safe. Neither option felt right to him, so he just couldn't decide. He paused, really thinking hard about where to spend his first points. He kept scrolling through the list and realized it just kept going. He scrolled through the skills and stopped at one called Wedge of Greed. It was F rank and cost 1,400 points. Basically, it let him keep using different skills and tools without getting hit by all the annoying side effects. Subaru was straight up sweating, totally blown away because he'd never seen a skill pull off something like that before. He figured out right away that this skill could probably stop the demonic sword from messing him up and maybe even keep his own lightning power from backfiring on him too. He didn't even think twice, he just went for it and dropped almost all his points on both the Wedge of Greed and the unknown demon sword. He called out the demonic sword and gave it a shot. Right away, he noticed how well the skill and the sword worked together, way better than just using one skill by itself. The combo felt smooth, and he definitely liked having both options instead of just one. Supervisor Hyuga cut him off, giving props for picking items that matched up well. But then he admitted that, as a supervisor, he just couldn't really get why he made that choice. Hyuga couldn't help but wonder why anyone would pick that skill. To him, it just seemed pretty useless and didn't really do anything special. Subaru let out a bored sigh, glancing at the supervisor like he was wondering if he really had to break down every tiny thing. Hyuga got mad at the way Subaru was talking to him. Subaru started shaking, pretending he was scared, and acted like he was sorry for messing up the formal talk. Hyuga chilled out a bit, thinking Subaru was just wiped from the exam and decided he'd let it go this once. Subaru glanced at the supervisor and started remembering stuff from way back. He realized the kid who used to always have a runny nose was now the one running the whole exam. Right then, this dude Hyuga walked over, looking kind of nervous. He said he was a fan of Subaru and asked if he could get his autograph. Subaru didn't have a signature to give, so the guy just asked him to write his name instead. Subaru went ahead and did it. Hyuga saw his chance and started going off about how the new generation had lost their morals, saying they were all just cocky now. Meanwhile, Subaru sat there thinking that things had moved on, kind of like how the supervisor's hairline had faded over the years. Hyuga totally lost his cool while Subaru just dipped out, dodging the earlier question by blaming exam rules. The supervisor was not having it and basically called him out for using stuff he found online. Hyuga called out, not letting it slide, and pretty much let him know he'd handle things his own way if he had to. He tried to fix things by asking Subaru to join the Chivalry Guild, but Subaru just shut it down right away, waving him off without even thinking about it. Hyuga just got turned down flat by the supervisor when he tried to bring someone new onto the team. As he was still processing what happened, a system window popped up in front of him, asking if he wanted to go up to the second floor. Supervisor Hyuga ran after Subaru, yelling for him to stop, but Subaru just dipped without looking back. The old guy was left standing there, totally lost about what just happened. Hyuga stood there by himself, clearly let down by how this guy was acting. Subaru made it up to the second floor and finally set foot in the City of Beginnings. The city was packed with people everywhere, with vendors calling out, trying to sell wild stuff like deep-sea rags from Runeterra and some kind of special dried meats. Subaru moved through the busy crowd, checking out everything from Muram silk to jackets made of earth leather. That's when it hit him. He was really back here. He knew deep down he'd just scored something most people never get, a real second shot. He'd already been through this once, so this time he was set on handling it way better. He thought back to those late nights with his crew, sitting around the fire. The memories hit different now, everyone gone because of what happened before. Right then, he promised himself he'd get payback, for them and for how it all ended. Subaru made his way over to the training building, looking to grab a private spot so he could mess around with his new gear and see what he could really do. The older worker, looking like he was just going through the motions, asked Subaru which floor he'd come from. Subaru just kept it short and said he'd climbed up. The training building was somewhere players always ended up, so nothing about this really surprised anyone. The employee just nodded toward the hallway, pointing out room 1. That room had a straw dummy inside. Seemed like he thought it was the best fit for this guy's skills. Subaru totally caught the guy off guard when he asked for room 5. The employee just stared at him, eyes wide, like he couldn't believe what he just heard. The employee straight up told him it wasn't worth it and said he should just stay in the first room. Subaru appreciated it, but he still went ahead and booked the 5th room for half an hour. Subaru dropped 50 credits and started walking down the hallway. The employee yelled after him, saying the money was gone if he bailed halfway, and threw out a jab, calling Subaru a wannabe hero. As the room numbers went up, things got way tougher. The first room was just full of training dummies, but by the third there were huge rocks everywhere. So when a rookie started heading for those harder rooms, everyone couldn't help but look at him like he was out of his mind. Subaru pulled the iron door shut behind him and got set to move through the dark. He grabbed this demon sword nobody had seen before, and as soon as he pulled it out, it started glowing red. Right away, the system locked on and knew he was the one using it. Out of nowhere, the sword blasted out this huge red energy. It started draining Subaru's health and magic super fast, all to boost his strength for a bit. The power-up hit hard, but it was rough on him. Right away, his Wedge of Greed skill kicked in at level 1, holding back the sword's wild kickback and giving him a tiny bit of health back. The resistance didn't really do the job, and Subaru could tell he was getting a bit more tired. That's when it hit him. The first level of this skill just wasn't strong enough to keep up. The sword kept draining his energy fast, and yeah, the pain just kept getting worse. But every bit of health he lost, his fighting skills leveled up hard like he was getting stronger the more it hurt. Subaru clenched his jaw, knowing he was already pushing himself as far as he could go right now. Still, he wasn't surprised. This was pretty much what he thought would happen. He didn't even think twice. He dropped 10,000 credits right away to level up the Wedge of Greed skill. His skill just hit level 2, but now he'd need 20,000 credits to level it up again. His upgraded skill managed to hold back most of the sword's kick this time, working way better than it did before. Even though the sword kept draining his health, he just powered through. Subaru's power shot up fast, so much that he actually had to admit his experiment worked. Subaru launched himself up, his sword lighting up in his hand. He was finally ready to see just how strong this thing really was. Outside, the employee was barely staying awake at his desk, bored out of his mind in that silent office. Out of nowhere, the door to room 5 swung open and Subaru stepped out. The employee just froze, barely able to process what was happening. He seriously questioned if he was still asleep or if his mind was just playing tricks on him. The old guy stopped in front of room 5, looking kind of lost. He checked the time, thinking the kid had barely been in there for 10 minutes. He walked up and knocked on the door, calling out for Dream Boy to see if he was around. He pushed the door open real slow, and what he saw on the other side just froze him up. His eyes went wide. He couldn't believe what he was looking at. The room looked wrecked, walls split open, and even the huge training rock was sliced clean in two. He just stared, trying to figure out what could have gone down to leave things this wild. Somewhere else, Subaru rolled out of bed in his hotel room, stretching his arms and trying to shake off the leftover stiffness. He couldn't tell if he'd crashed for hours or just a quick nap, but his body definitely wasn't ready to move yet. He chilled in the hotel lobby, coffee in hand, replaying the whole cursed sword experiment in his head. If that thing had just been a regular blade, things could have gone way worse. But now, the sword didn't weigh him down as much, and he actually figured out how to pull some power from it. He checked out his stats and saw he was only at level 10 with pretty average numbers. Honestly, with those stats, he shouldn't even be able to pick up that magic sword, much less swing it around. Subaru thought back to his training, realizing just how well his Wedge of Greed skill synced up with the sword. Everything just clicked, and he knew right then that his plan had actually worked out. He flashed a confident grin, thinking that tossing the lightning element into the combo would probably work just as well. He snapped back to reality real quick when he checked his balance, barely 50 credits left. Upgrading the skill needed 20,000, which was just wild. He couldn't help but wonder if this body had just been broke forever. Subaru sat there, kinda down bad about how rough things had gotten. He was literally stressing over stuff like balance management now. He tried to tell himself that dying made it make sense, but before he could finish that thought, someone's loud voice rolled in and snapped him out of it. He looked over and spotted a dude with cat ears, phone out, streaming live. The guy was hyped up, talking about his adventure on the second floor and what it was like when he first started out. A notification popped up on the stream showing someone just dropped 1,000 credits. The hype in the chat instantly went up, and the whole vibe on stream got way more energetic. The streamer was hyped up, celebrating on camera when he accidentally dumped coffee all over himself. Even though it was a mess, he played it cool for the viewers, acting super grateful and giving a shout out to the person who sent him the donation. Subaru just stared, totally thrown off, trying to figure out if this person had actually lost it. He scrolled through his tablet, checking out stories about how live streaming had basically taken over. Now, it seemed like 1 out of every 3 players was grinding streams just to rack up points. Subaru figured out that the video he just watched was actually a live stream set up for donations. Right after, he caught a voice he knew calling out his name. He turned around and spotted this dude dressed sharp, looking like he just walked out of a fancy magazine. The guy wanted to know if he'd made the climb too. The guy walked up to him, saying it was pretty wild they ran into each other, then started asking where he lived. Right then, Subaru noticed something weird going on inside him. It wasn't like he was annoyed, more like his body just reacted on its own, almost like he got a sudden rush. That's when he realized the guy who owned this body before probably didn't vibe with this person at all. The guy talked down to him, basically telling him to pay attention when he speaks, like he was annoyed that it felt like he was just talking to a wall. Subaru kept his eyes on him, starting to realize that what was running through him wasn't just some random uneasiness. He tried to play it cool and said he'd just climbed up, but as memory started coming back, something deeper was going on under the surface. Isaac just shot a sarcastic smile, basically making it clear he never thought someone that weak could actually make it through the tutorial. Isaac thought Subaru was about to get taken out by one of the goblins. All the memories from the real Subaru Hosoi came rushing back to him. Everything played out in his head like a scene he couldn't forget. He saw himself, shaking and scared, standing in front of Isaac, who stared him down and demanded to know what was up with him. Isaac's words kept replaying in his mind, throwing out harsh criticism and making it clear he didn't want Subaru acting all calm. That memory wouldn't let go. Isaac kept tearing into Subaru, saying just hearing his name was annoying, and calling him out for not being able to do even basic stuff. He accused Subaru of trying to act special just because he was an orphan and said he was clueless. Subaru showed up in the memory, tears running down his face as he struggled to explain why he thought the credit he gave wasn't enough. Isaac ignored everything and just swung hard, dropping him straight to the ground. He told him not to even think about talking back and called him trash. Isaac joked to himself that this box was basically his new crib now. He stared Subaru down with this creepy grin, making it clear that if Subaru even thought about stepping out of that box, things would get real ugly real fast. The message was obvious: break the rules and you're done for. Subaru thought back on those times, feeling pretty bitter about it all. He couldn't believe anyone would just sit there and take all that beating and humiliation without saying a word. Now, he finally got why the original guy ended up hiding out in a trash container. Isaac started talking himself up again about clearing 20 stages and beating his dad's record. He made sure everyone noticed how even Supervisor Hugo was impressed with what he pulled off. He kept going on about his B-rank skill, acting like it was the best thing you could get in the tutorial. After hyping himself up, he just demanded a drink without any manners. Subaru just kept it icy and said he was out, not even bothering with Isaac's flexing. Isaac cut him off, basically telling him to grab some cheap coffee on the way back, not really giving him a choice. Subaru let out a bored sigh, not really caring who heard. Isaac caught it right away and got pretty annoyed, realizing Subaru wasn't acting like his usual quiet self anymore. Isaac shot him a serious look, wanting to know what was up with him lately and why he kept zoning out. He even joked about whether something had taken over his brain. Subaru, totally unfazed, just shut him down and said he didn't have any credit. He told the guy to grab his own coffee, then just turned and got ready to dip. Isaac told Subaru to sit, his voice dropping and sounding serious, almost like he wasn't messing around at all. Subaru wasn't about to listen. In his head, he felt a little bad that he couldn't get payback for the dude whose body he now had, but he had bigger things to worry about. Still, he made it clear to Isaac don't mess with him or get in his way. Out of nowhere, Isaac clamped down on Subaru's arm, holding on tight. He got in his face, making sure he remembered what happens to anyone who tries to bail. Subaru shot him a serious look, pretty much telling him to back off and let go of his arm if he knew what was good for him. Isaac grabbed Subaru's arm, kinda giving him a reality check. He used Subaru's name in a way that made it clear he wasn't impressed. Subaru knew starting something in the middle of this packed spot would just backfire on him. Isaac cracked up out of nowhere, making it clear he was just messing with Subaru, same way he always used to back in the day. He dropped Subaru's hand and just called him out for being weak and scared, basically saying Subaru was still a nobody. Isaac kept messing with him, acting like Subaru barely scraped through the tutorial. Meanwhile, Subaru just stared back, not saying anything, kind of noticing how his body was tensing up from pure instinct. Isaac walked up to him, looking annoyed, and basically called him out, making it clear he wasn't afraid to start something. He threw in a reminder about his dad's power, like he could mess with the guy's life without anyone even noticing. Isaac walked out, laughing to himself in that annoying, smug way. Before heading off, he tossed out a quick warning for his friend to watch his back. Subaru stood there, completely fired up. He kept tossing around the word "my friend," but you could tell he didn't mean it at all. He was just being sarcastic and salty. The story switched up to break down how people level up in the tower. Basically, there are two main ways to get stronger. The first one is by beating the tower's tests, which all go down in some kind of virtual world. This is the kind of spot where players can level up and grab rewards without stressing about getting wrecked. Losing in these trials just means you drop some progress and lose credit, but nobody's actually in danger. The other way is to hunt in real life, where players have to deal with monsters that show up outside safe areas or deep inside dungeons. Hunting levels you up way quicker, but the danger is legit. One wrong move and it could be game over. If you go down in the hunting grounds, that's it. It's game over for real. The monsters there don't hold back. They just eat anyone who drops, no second chances. Most players didn't want to risk getting wiped out, so they just stuck to safe zones in the game. Meanwhile, the entrance to the Orc's Nest, looking dark and straight up sketchy, showed up. Hunting in real life levels you up way faster, but it's way sketchier too. Subaru was sitting there totally wiped right in front of this massive monster he just took down. That's when it really hit him. Playing it safe drags things out, but taking risks means you get stronger way quicker. He stared at the monster's body, worn out but with a small grin, finally accepting what was real. He pulled out his tablet, just planning to scroll through the news, but right away he spotted a live stream where someone was straight up pretending to be him. There was a guy rocking the same mask as him, showing up in front of his 80,000 plus followers and letting everyone know he was about to take on the third floor. Subaru couldn't stand seeing all these people using his name and mask just to get attention. It really got under his skin. Out of nowhere, a fresh mission popped up on the stream called Narukami Subaru is a Fool, and it came with a 20,000 credit reward. The imposter saw it and was instantly hyped, feeling super thankful as he locked that mission in. After that, wild missions started popping up, stuff like Lonely Wallet and Idol of Baldness, and the payouts were insane. Subaru just sat there, eyes glued to the screen, not believing how much money was on the line. The imposter hyped up his followers, saying he'd make sure to handle whatever they asked for. Subaru couldn't help but notice how the imposter was just chilling, stacking cash from streaming, while he was out here risking everything fighting monsters. It hit different, seeing how easy the imposter had it compared to his own rough situation. Subaru stared at his sad little balance. It barely hit 50 credits. Meanwhile, Clown was out here stacking serious cash, and Subaru couldn't help but wish he was winning like that. He let out a heavy sigh, realizing he just had to get back to work. There really wasn't any other option. He knew he had to step up and handle it. He grabbed his sword, still covered in blood, and got ready for even more monsters coming his way. Out of nowhere, a fresh squad of mad orcs showed up, and Subaru didn't waste a second. He charged straight at them. Out of nowhere, the orc general, who runs this whole area, showed up. His presence was intense. Everyone could feel how dangerous he was right away. Subaru faced the boss and his crew, not bothered at all that they didn't have their usual poison needles. He was ready, almost flexing, letting them know he brought something way better for them this time. Subaru activated his Wedge of Greed skill, draining his own health to boost his strength. He just grinned like he was on another level, letting everyone know he had stuff to do and wasn't about to waste time. He launched himself way up and stomped straight down on an orc's head, taking it out and getting some of his health and focus back. He took off crazy fast, cutting straight through the enemies like they weren't even there. He leaped straight over the orc general, getting ready to end it right there. He takes down the boss in one clean swipe of his sword. Right after, a notification pops up showing he cleared the dungeon, and Subaru just stands there winning with all the wreckage around him. Later on, he grabbed his old mask and stared at it for a while, knowing he had no choice but to put it back on. He stared at himself in the mirror with the mask on, finally getting how streamers actually make bank. He made up his mind. If he was gonna go for it, he'd go all out and do it his way, no holding back. He just goes out there and says with zero hesitation that he's actually the real deal. He fired up a livestream called Narukami Subaru, and the whole Suden Entertainment Company office instantly got hyped. She sat there, eyes glued to the screen, clearly annoyed as she watched the stream. Out of nowhere, she let out a scream that caught everyone off guard. One of her coworkers hurried over, trying to figure out what was going on. She just pointed at her screen, totally caught up in what she was seeing. The employee totally lost it, yelling and dropping every curse word he knew, just stunned that someone actually pulled off a mission barely anyone else had ever finished. Her coworker tried to chill her out, bringing up the whole self-censorship rule that can get you fined for swearing, then asked who this person even was. She replied to him, still kind of stunned, and said her name was Subiki. Her coworker started thinking, was this just someone pretending, or maybe something totally new? Then the other employee mentioned that since the real Subaru wasn't around, the strongest version they had was probably the closest thing to the original. At the office, Hatsuka sat at her desk looking tired as she complained about all the people pretending to be Subaru Narukami. Her coworker glanced over, kind of questioning if live streaming was even alive anymore with all these fakes popping up. Hatsuka lets him know this field is how they make a living, and even says that players who put their lives on the line in the tower still get bored out here. Her coworker looked at her, not really getting why she stopped chasing the tower dream, and settled for a job like this. She scrolled through her phone, barely looking up, and just let him know she was doing it because she was bored. Hatsuka couldn't hide how upset she was as she called him out, basically saying he quit too. She thought if she actually had the time, she'd be out there finding someone with real skills instead of wasting energy on all this. Her coworker just sat there and admitted he backed out because he knew he wasn't good enough. Hatsuka kept going off about how her coworker was only really putting in effort because he wanted to see Subaru Narukami. Now that his idol was gone, of course he wasn't hyped anymore. Out of nowhere, she suddenly let out a loud scream and pointed at the screen, totally catching everyone off guard. Her coworker came over fast, clearly stressing, wanting to know if she'd run into some other strange dude again. She spotted a fresh live stream where someone had on Subaru's outfit, and her coworker basically said it looked awful. Her coworker lost it, totally confused about why she was up on the second floor watching some random stream that nobody was even tuned into. To her, it felt like a slap in the face to her job as a talent scout. Hatsuka sat there, totally zoned in on the screen. Every time she saw someone show up with that mask, hope just kinda snuck up on her and wouldn't leave. Out of nowhere, Hatsuka dropped 1,000 credits on the stream. Her coworker couldn't handle it. He just dropped to his knees, basically begging her to let it slide. Subaru was making his way through the second floor of the starter dungeon, thinking it wasn't really tough, just kinda stressful. He could tell something was off, like someone had eyes on him even though nobody else was around. Subaru spotted some comments from viewers, and one of them asked about the floor. He let them know this was his first time taking on that kind of challenge. Another viewer called Love Money dropped a heads up in the chat, letting him know that streaming isn't easy for newbies who don't know the ropes. Meanwhile, Subaru just kept moving carefully, watching his step. Out of nowhere, this one-eyed bat showed up and just launched itself at him. Subaru didn't waste any time. He snapped into action and took out the bat in one clean hit. A message popped up on the screen saying the monster was down and he'd just scored an achievement point. Subaru looked straight at the viewers, not caring, and basically let them know he wasn't here for their complaints. He kept moving through the dark dungeon, noticing the comments popping up more and more. White was hyped about how fast Subaru was moving, but Love Money was telling him to chill out and wait for backup. Subaru just scrolled through the comments, barely reacting. Subaru appreciated the heads up from Love Money, but he turned it down, saying that just wasn't going to work for him. Subaru just straight up said he'd rather take on the challenge solo, acting like he had it all figured out. The people watching weren't having it though. They started clowning him, already betting he was about to get wrecked. Subaru just brushed off their sarcastic digs about him chasing clout with his name. He locked in on the new monster that just popped up in front of him. A mud nymph monster suddenly shot up from the ground, but Subaru was ready. He moved fast, dodging out of the way and landing a clean hit with his demon sword, taking the thing out just like that. Subaru wanted to push himself and find out just what he was capable of. Right after he took down the monster, a notification popped up showing he earned 2 points. People watching couldn't believe what just went down and kept talking about it online. Out of nowhere, the place got loud with monster noises as a bunch of bats and mud nymphs showed up. Subaru charged in, not holding back, his red sword lighting up as he sliced through monsters from every angle. Everyone watching couldn't believe how fast and strong he was. They just sat there, trying to figure out what they were even seeing. Subaru kept getting non-stop notifications for beating monsters and stacking points. He stood there, sword in hand, showing everyone he wasn't just some wannabe, he was actually someone to watch out for. Inside the pitch-black cave, Subaru started showing his crew how to figure out where enemies were hiding and how many there were just by listening in. While he tried to teach, people in the chat weren't having it. They clowned on him, saying he was capping and acting like a pro when he'd barely just started out. Subaru reached up and touched his mask, kind of worried that if anyone figured out who he really was, they'd get what was actually running through his head. Meanwhile, people online kept throwing shade, roasting him for pretending to be Narukami Subaru and trying to ride that wave of fame. Subaru kept moving forward, totally focused, thinking about how the points he'd picked up weren't enough yet. He wanted to grab as many achievement points as he could before dipping out of there. Everyone online was watching his moves, throwing shade and cracking jokes. Some dude online even said a real man would just charge in without saying a word, while a bunch of others started questioning if he'd even bothered to look up anything before jumping into a sketchy spot like that. Out of nowhere, Subaru froze and looked up. What he saw blew his mind. The whole ceiling was packed with these huge, one-eyed bats just hanging there. All the monsters snapped their glowing red eyes open at the same time. Everyone watching online already thought he was done for, almost rooting for him to fail just to see what would happen next. Right then, a mission notification popped up from a viewer named My Only Stream. The offer was just 100 credits if he could take out all those monsters. Most of the chat thought it was either a troll move or some kind of messed up setup. Subaru totally caught everyone off guard. He just took on the challenge without freaking out, acting cool about it, and even gave a quick thanks for the 100 credits. The story jumped over to the studio where Hatsuka's coworker was just sitting there slamming his fist on the table. He was clearly mad at himself for not making it up to the 6th floor. He noticed Hatsuka was deep into whatever she was doing on her device, so he apologized right away for interrupting her focus. Hatsuka spotted something weird on her screen and just went quiet, catching her coworker's attention. He looked over, curious about what had her so locked in and why she suddenly zoned out. Out of nowhere, Hatsuka called him out, pointing out something was off. The guy started fumbling over his words, scrambling to explain himself. He tried to play it down, saying it wasn't even that much money and that he could cover it. Hatsuka glanced down at her phone, not really trusting what she was seeing. Her coworker said he was done with gambling for good, but Hatsuka's eyes went wide. Whatever popped up on her screen totally caught her off guard. She shook her head, making it clear she wasn't even talking about whatever he just said. Hatsuka stared at the screen, totally caught off guard as she spotted the name Narukami Subaru. Her coworker couldn't believe she was still glued to that stream. His face just dropped, pure terror taking over as he tried to process what he was seeing. His brain couldn't even handle how unreal it all was. Subaru tore through the bats on screen, swinging his sword so fast that red streaks flew everywhere. People in the comments went wild, seriously doubting this was just an early level. The bats didn't stand a chance, and viewers actually started to feel bad for them. Nobody could believe how many monsters he was taking down by himself with every hit. During the fight, Subaru suddenly remembered something Shigur once said about him. Back then, Shigur told him he was impressive because no matter how wild things got, Subaru's breathing and focus stayed steady, even when he had to switch up his sword moves in the middle of an attack. That memory just hit different in the middle of all the chaos. Shigur was breaking it down. People think he takes out enemies with one clean move, but what's actually happening is he studies how they move and figures out his next step before anything even goes down. Subaru thought back and realized he'd just said he wasn't thinking about anything special. That totally threw Shigure off. He remembered when Shigure used to complain about him, saying it'd probably be better if he couldn't just do that on autopilot, and honestly thought he was kind of a pain. He snapped back to real life and started mowing down the bats, sticking to his rule for both talking and fighting. He kept eye contact and made it clear what he was about to do. When there were a bunch of enemies, he didn't waste time going after each one by itself. Subaru let everyone know that one-eyed bats always go for it by pushing their heads straight forward when they attack. He realized that when a bunch of them grouped up, they left a way bigger opening than when they were alone, so he jumped right in and took advantage of the chaos. Subaru stood there, sword still dripping, surrounded by what was left from the fight. The chat wasn't buying his explanation at all. Nobody thought he made any sense. One viewer, the same guy who called him a newbie earlier, started asking for an apology, not letting it go. Subaru just stood there, totally chill, while someone watching compared his explanation to the most obvious thing ever, like saying you can walk if you move your foot. Deep down, Subaru couldn't help but think that talking to people was actually way harder than it seemed. Viewer Love Money, the guy running the challenge, hit him up to remind him about claiming the credit. That's when Subaru suddenly remembered he still had to sort that out. Subaru started messing with his tablet, looking kind of lost, and everyone watching got thrown off, thinking maybe the stream froze or just cut out. Subaru just sat there, locked on the screen, totally clueless about how to claim his reward. The chat blew up, roasting him for having zero tech skills. Subaru finally got it done after Love Money showed him where the button was. He finished the task, scored the 100 credits, and made sure to thank everyone watching. Subaru let everyone know online that this next challenge was going to be the final one. He kept his head up and moved straight for the dungeon's exit, stats looking solid, balance up to 150, achievement points now at 118. Inside the broadcasting office, Hatsuka suddenly let out a loud scream. Her coworker jumped, totally caught off guard, and turned to see what was up with her. Hatsuka stared at the screen, totally caught off guard, and pointed it out, trying to figure out if her coworker had ever seen something like this. He stayed chill, trying to reassure her it was just a regular stream from the second floor. Hatsuka started tearing up, saying she wasn't just freaking out for no reason. Her coworker saw she was serious and quickly said sorry, looking pretty anxious about it. She got hyped, thinking maybe this was actually Subaru Narukami back from Earth, and started wondering if this was meant to be. She kept tossing out wild ideas about reincarnation, dropping references from books she'd read. Meanwhile, her coworker watched her, clearly worried, thinking she always goes off the rails whenever Subaru comes up. Hatsuka got so hyped she started feeling lightheaded. Just to make sure this was real, she had Songhyun give her a quick pinch. Songhyun shut her down and looked at her, wanting to know if she was actually planning to bring this guy onto the team. Hatsuka let out a loud yell, totally hyped, because even if this guy wasn't actually Subaru, he was still crazy talented at streaming on his own. Songhyun wasn't down for her plan at all. He tried to shut it down, saying the department head would totally lose it if he found out. But Hatsuka just called him out, reminding him that he was literally betting a few minutes earlier, so he had no business acting all serious with her now. Hatsuka didn't even pay him any attention. She just pulled out her phone to watch Subaru's stream, telling her coworker to chill and watch. She was confident she'd prove her point. Subaru finally got to the end of the dungeon, and a huge gate showed up right in front of him. Subaru stepped through the gate and spotted this huge wolf-looking beast just sitting there, almost like it was straight up waiting for him. Greg, the wolf warrior, showed up on stream and instantly had everyone's attention. The dude just had this vibe, like you could almost feel the pressure through the screen. People were spamming the chat, talking about how intense he looked, and one guy even dropped that he'd already lost to Greg 8 times before. A new mission popped up telling Subaru he had to get the Wolf Warrior to notice him if he wanted to move forward. Subaru broke it down for everyone. Turns out the Wolf Warrior isn't just some big boss you take down for loot. He's actually like a gatekeeper, checking if players are strong enough to move forward. If you can't keep up, you're not getting past him. Out of nowhere, Subaru saw a new mission pop up from Safe Origin, take down the Wolf Warrior and score 3,000 credits. He honestly couldn't believe it. Everyone watching saw the wild request and instantly thought the donor was just being harsh, asking for something nobody could pull off. Nobody really believed Subaru was about to throw hands or anything. Greg, the Wolf Warrior guarding the second floor, was locked in and ready for whatever was about to go down. Suddenly, Subaru got hit with a system message telling him he had to earn the warrior's respect. Greg just kept his eyes locked on Subaru, sizing him up without saying a word. The wolf looked at Subaru and wanted to know if he was by himself. The way the wolf spoke, you could tell he wasn't messing around. The wolf walked up to him, kind of unsure, and Subaru could already tell just by checking out its vibe. The wolf picked up Subaru's scent and seemed to think he was some kind of badass, even though everyone watching knew that didn't line up with what they'd heard about him before. People in the comments were quick to call out how weird that was, roasting the whole situation. Subaru knew deep down that the Wolf Tribe guys had this crazy sharp sense of smell. They could now see who someone really was, not just how they smelled, and the wolf let everyone know that Subaru actually had what it took to make it. The test wrapped up, Subaru got the green light, and people watching couldn't believe how things turned out. Subaru just stood there, not making a move. He quietly admitted that stuff like this never happened in his old life. He definitely looked disappointed since all he really wanted was to go after the wolf. The wolf didn't see it coming. He looked around, checking if the guy was actually talking to him and not just pointing at the gate behind him. Subaru didn't even flinch as he answered, his eyes shining behind that mask. He let it slip that he was just doing what someone told him. Someone wanted this guy dead. The wolf showed his teeth like he was actually impressed, almost grinning. He could tell Subaru had that real fighter energy just like he thought he would. At Sutton Entertainment's main office, John Teal, the department manager, was locked in at his desk, hammering away at his keyboard as he kept an eye on everyone's work reports. He really wanted to know how many people were watching that stream right then, so he asked about the viewer count, trying to keep it serious. Song Hyun, kind of on edge, told them there were around 20 people. But before he could even finish, Hatsuka jumped in and shot that down right away. She shut him down without even blinking, letting him know the number was over 30 now. In her head, she just thought he was clueless. The manager stared at them, eyes narrowed, clearly not buying it. He wondered if they were just goofing off and wasting time. He called them out hard, making it clear he knew about the gambling and how they'd been watching streams instead of working. He reminded everyone why they were there, to find the next big talents. Hatsuka didn't even pay attention to the manager going off on her. She just kept her eyes glued to the screen, quietly saying the number hit 30. The manager saw that and got even more fired up, yelling that she was missing the point. The manager, not really being serious, tossed out the idea that she should just start streaming since she had the skills, instead of just hanging around doing nothing. Out of nowhere, Hatsuka started yelling, super hyped, cutting him off to say the number just blew past 40. Meanwhile, the manager was losing it in the background, shouting and trying to get her attention. Back on the second floor, Subaru squared up against the wolf warrior. The wolf dude looked ready to tear into him, practically growling, and Subaru just had to hold his ground. Subaru held onto his sword with both hands, locking in on the fight and blocking out everything else. At the same time, this weird demon blade started draining his energy, and he could actually feel it happening. After taking in more energy, his body got stronger, and he focused on steadying his breath, trying to keep everything under control. The level 2 Wedge of Greed skill kicked in, helping him push back against the sword messing with him. Subaru hyped himself up, ready to fight the way he always did, even if this new body was throwing him off for the first time. The wolf jumped forward, claws out, ripping through the dirt and air as he went all in on the attack. Subaru blocked the beast's claws with his sword, and the impact sent sparks flying everywhere. The weapons hit hard, making the whole moment feel intense. The monster went all out, attacking super fast, and Subaru barely kept up, struggling to dodge and block every move because that wolf was insanely quick. Subaru could tell his opponent was insanely strong. He barely kept up, blocking claws flying at him non-stop from all sides. He knew there was no way he could outmuscle the beast, so he started thinking up another plan. The wolf kept coming at Subaru, honestly impressed by how tough he was fighting back. He just yelled out, acting all confident, basically letting everyone know he thought Subaru didn't stand a chance against him. Subaru kept backing up and blocking attacks, just trying to survive. Meanwhile, the chat started blowing up, saying he was just stalling and had no shot against this overpowered monster. Everyone watching seemed convinced he was about to lose. After a bunch of tries, some guys online started saying to come back and give it another shot later, blaming the impossible mission's owner for making things so tough. Meanwhile, Subaru dipped out for a bit just to chill and get his energy back. Subaru started thinking fast, realizing that just being strong wasn't the only way to come out on top. After having his fun with the fight, the wolf said it was over and got ready to land the final hit. The beast slammed the ground so hard that rocks broke apart and dust shot up everywhere. Subaru showed up out of nowhere, charging straight through the dust. He let the beast know he wasn't impressed, pretty much calling out how basic and obvious all those attacks were. That totally caught the wolf off guard. Subaru moved quick, slipping past the beast's bite and claws like it was nothing. Dodging those attacks felt way too easy for him. Subaru saw his chance and went for it, landing a clean hit on the beast. The beast let out a loud scream. Subaru's attack really got him. He came through with a brutal sword swing straight down, splitting the wolf's chest wide open. Blood went everywhere, making it clear this fight was over. Subaru stood there, his sword still dripping with blood. The wolf warrior, barely hanging on, had to give it up and basically called Subaru a beast in battle before he finally dropped. Subaru was just standing there in the middle of the battlefield, blood everywhere, when those system pop-ups started showing up. They told him straight up that he beat the wolf warrior, leveled up twice, and got boost to his strength and agility. More notifications came in, saying his focus and magic power went up, and he just bagged 500 achievement points in one shot. Meanwhile, the livestream chat went wild. Nobody could believe he actually soloed that beast. Subaru tried to catch his breath, barely holding it together, and he pumped his fist, feeling like he just scored big. The stream's viewer count climbed to 56, and the chat was blowing up with people hyping up the legend who dared him to pull off that wild challenge. A notification popped up saying the mission was done, and 3,000 credits just landed in Subaru's account from the viewer's safe. He checked his phone and told himself he'd make this money count. His balance was over 3,000 and his achievement points were past 600. Right then, the huge gate in front of him started to open up, making this loud, deep creaking noise that just hit different. Out of nowhere, Subaru picked up on this weird vibe in the air, and even the people watching through their screens could tell something was up. Suddenly, a massive screen popped up in front of him, showing a bunch of different test paths: ice, fire, earth, illusion, poison, metal, soul, and water. The whole thing was packed with options, and he had to pick one. Nobody expected that many options to pop up for him. People in the chat went wild, especially since most had only seen like 16 choices before. It was clear to everyone watching, the more options you get, the more skilled you actually are. Subaru didn't even look at the other choices. His eyes went straight to the lightning test. The system popped up, asking if he was ready to go for it. People watching were hyped, cheering him on, and making it clear this test was basically made for him. Subaru didn't hesitate at all. He just nodded, totally sure of himself. The system locked in his pick for the lightning test, and Subaru headed straight for the blinding light that lit up the whole area. Inside the Suiton office, Hatsuka shot up from her chair, totally hyped about Subaru winning. She couldn't sit still after seeing that. She spun around to her coworkers, holding up her phone with this big grin. The viewer count had just shot up to 60 way faster than usual, and she was clearly impressed. Then she pointed out how wild it was that he suddenly had 13 test options pop up on his screen. The department manager couldn't stop sweating as he watched everything go down, clearly on edge. He had to admit, seeing someone finally take down the Wolf Warrior who'd always come out on top before was actually wild. He caught himself and played it safe, reminding himself that Subaru was still pretty new to the second floor. Betting on him right now just seemed like way too much of a risk. Hatsuka wasn't backing down just because her manager seemed unsure. Right then, while her coworkers were all caught off guard, she threw out a bet that nobody saw coming. She straight up told everyone that if Subaru couldn't get the lightning element, she and Seijin would take a set paycheck and grind it out for 5 years. But if Subaru actually pulled it off, the manager had to promise to lock in a contract with him, no backing out. Seijin couldn't believe what was happening. He started freaking out, saying he had nothing to do with any of this and didn't even know who this person was. In all the chaos, he shoved Hatsuka aside, trying to get himself out of the mess. The manager shot a fake smile, clearly not buying that Subaru could actually pull this off. He pointed out that, so far, Subaru Narukami was the only one who ever got lightning, making it sound like no one else had a shot. Hatsuka just grinned, looking like he was up for anything, making it clear nobody would really know how things turn out until they actually tried. The manager just nodded, not showing any emotion, as Hatsuka clamped a hand over her coworker's mouth, making sure he couldn't mess things up for her. Over at the test arena, the system fired up and let everyone know the lightning test was about to kick off. Out of nowhere, Subaru picked up on something bad about to happen. Before he could react, someone yelled a warning and jumped in to shove Subaru out of harm's way. Something huge slammed into the ground, and suddenly the whole place blew up. Rocks and debris went flying everywhere. Once the dust settled, this massive white monster stood there, showing off its muscles. Meanwhile, the stranger called Subaru out for not paying attention. Someone straight up looked at Subaru and asked if he was trying to get himself killed. A system message popped up telling Subaru he had to take down the giant's fragment. He was down on his knees, completely thrown off, trying to figure out why this monster even showed up. The giant just stood there, growling, and everyone watching was totally thrown off. Nobody could figure out why a monster from the giant's crew suddenly showed up during the lightning test. Subaru locked eyes with the monster, hands sweating. He instantly knew this thing was boss level, the kind that usually pops up way later in the test, not right at the start like this. While the giant got ready to charge, Subaru couldn't help thinking if taking out the Wolf Warrior Greg had messed with the whole trial and cranked up the difficulty like this. The giant's fragment went all in, swinging his huge club down and wrecking the ground. Cracks spread out everywhere and chunks of rock shot out like he was trying to clear the whole zone. Subaru slipped out of the way, quick on his feet, clocking right away that this monster, even though it looked huge, wasn't built like Greg the Wolf Warrior, knowing that ahead of time gave him an edge, and he was definitely thankful for the heads up. The guy who just saved him started yelling, kind of annoyed that he had to bother saving him in the first place, and told him to stop messing around and get out of there fast. Subaru wanted to wrap things up fast before anything messed him up, so he pulled out his sword and triggered the unknown demon sword skill. This move boosted his fighting power but started draining his health at the same time. He powered up with level 2 Wedge of Greed, bracing himself for the sword's nasty kickback. With the giant charging at him, he got ready to hold his ground. Subaru moved quick, slipping out of the way just as the giant's fist slammed down. The ground where he'd just been standing broke apart from the force, but he was already clear. Subaru didn't back off. Instead, he took off, sprinting up the giant's arm like he was in a race, moving so fast it looked unreal. The monster just stood there, totally lost, not catching on to what was going down. By the time he figured it out, Subaru was already behind him, flying through the air and about to strike. Subaru jumped onto the giant's shoulder and drove his sword in hard. Blood went everywhere, splashing all over as he held on tight. The beast let out a deep growl, hurting bad, but Subaru just stared back, totally unfazed. He shot the beast a look, clearly annoyed by all the noise. He didn't hesitate, just went for it and landed the final hit, basically telling the monster to stay quiet forever as blood burst out from the giant's neck. The huge body crashed onto the floor, totally done. Right then, a system message popped up, letting everyone know he beat the giant's fragment and cleared stage 4. People watching the stream were just stunned. Nobody could figure out how he skipped through and landed straight on the 4th stage. As soon as Subaru checked his phone, he saw a bunch of notifications pop up saying his level went up. His strength, agility, health, and magic all got a boost, and he instantly picked up 4,000 achievement points. He picked up 2 rare drops, Heart of the Giant and Lightning Bolt armor. The chat went wild, hyped about how stacked the rewards were and how nobody had ever cleared stages 1 to 4 all at once like that after taking down the Wolf Warrior. The guy who rescued Subaru came sprinting back, totally out of breath. His followers knew him as Falcon. He was stumbling over his words, clearly still rattled. Falcon couldn't believe what he was seeing and wanted to know what this guy really was. Subaru just slid his sword back in, barely even caring, and let it show on his face, like if Falcon just looked, he'd get it. Subaru squared up, trying to look all heroic, and told everyone he was there to take down the giant. Meanwhile, the comment section roasted him for not really saying anything clear. Now the story moves over to a chill village. Subaru walks into an inn, finds his room, and just crashes on the bed for a bit to take a breather. Everyone watching his stream kept spamming the chat, wanting him to show off what he picked up. Most of them were sure he must have scored some crazy magic gear or rare loot. Subaru gave a quick grin, clearly ready to check out what he'd scored. He looked pretty interested to see what his loot was all about. Subaru pulled out the Heart of the Giant, a rare ring that bumps up your health by 2 and helps you heal faster. He was honestly impressed by what it could do. Next up, he checked out the second item, Lightning Bolt. This rare piece of armor bumped up his defense by 5 points. It was charged with lightning energy and even had a special skill that could wipe away any bad effects once a day. Subaru threw on his fresh armor and instantly looked like a total boss. Out of nowhere, a mission popped up from Narukami Koa 5,000 credits on the line if he could pick up the lightning skill. Other followers like I Am Bald, Mission Villain, and Safe Origin started sending their own missions, each one dropping crazy amounts, thousands of credits, just to watch him pull off that lightning move. Subaru nodded at everyone, feeling thankful, and made it clear he was going to prove just how strong his lightning really was. He stared at the screen, trying to figure out why everyone was hyped for the lightning skill. Something about it didn't sit right with him, and he started getting a little suspicious. Subaru started to get the feeling that the real Subaru Narukami was way more important and had a bigger impact than he ever guessed. Just as he was deep in thought, someone knocked at the door and snapped him out of it. He let them in, not realizing that people in the comments were already pointing out someone was listening in. Falcon walked in, and right behind him was this knight dude, looking sharp in some seriously shiny armor. Falcon showed up with the knight, saying sorry for being late, and let everyone know this was Lord Peleus, the main guy in charge of the village knights. Falcon started talking about how giants had been showing up a lot more lately, and how everyone had to stay geared up and ready all the time. No one was getting a break, they were always on watch, just in case something went down. Nobody was supposed to go outside unless they really had to, just to keep things safe. While everyone stayed in, the commander was deep in conversation with his assistant, going over what they needed to do to keep things under control. Falcon couldn't believe he ran into someone new, especially with how rough things were going right then. Commander Peleus gave Subaru a nod, saying he'd heard how Subaru stepped up for the village while he was gone. The villagers were grateful, and Peleus made sure Subaru knew it. Subaru just shrugged it off, acting like he hadn't done anything special, but you could tell he was checking Peleus out, watching him pretty closely. He spotted Peleus, the knight who always had the village's back. Peleus let him know they actually pulled it off during their recon. They found where the giant leader was hiding. He let everyone know he was dead serious. They were ready to put everything on the line to track this guy down right where he hides. Peleus dropped his head in front of Subaru, pushing aside all that commander pride. He straight up asked Subaru for help, hoping he could step in and save their village before things got any worse. Subaru just sat there, quiet, eyes on the screen. Meanwhile, the livestream chat was blowing up, people dropping weird warnings for Peleus, even tagging him by name. Some viewers were begging everyone to chill with the spoilers about what's coming next. Subaru thought back to the main story and it hit him. Peleus wasn't going to make it past the next part. That realization stung way more than he expected. Even though he knew how this was all going to end, he told Peleus to look up. He stared at him, kind of sad, but also ready to do what had to be done. Subaru decided to team up with him, and right away, the commander's face relaxed, like he could finally chill and trust things would work out. Peleus nodded in thanks, and right then a system pop-up showed up, letting everyone know that Stage 5 called Survival was about to kick off. The squad started moving out toward the rough mountains, with Subaru walking in the middle, scrolling to his tablet. He saw the chat blowing up as more people joined the stream, and it hit him how tough it was to actually talk with everyone when things got this wild. Out of nowhere, Peleus threw his hand up and told everyone to pause. He raised his hand and aimed it toward where the enemy was hiding, letting the squad know what was up without making a scene. The giant leader was totally knocked out, chilling against the side of the hill. His body was covered in tattoos, and his beard looked wild and thick. Peleus came up with a plan. He was going to grab the leader's attention up front, leaving Subaru to sneak in from behind and catch the guy off guard. Subaru cut him off out of nowhere, telling him to hold up. He'd just spotted something weird in the air around the leader who was knocked out. Subaru's eyes went wide when it hit him. There was more than just the leader here. Out of nowhere, the ground cracked wide open, and a bunch of other giants popped up, closing in around the leader. It almost felt like the whole thing was a setup from the start. Out on the horizon, a whole squad of giants showed up, all grinning with these creepy pale faces. They closed in fast, boxing the knights in from every direction, making it clear there was no easy way out. Peleus just stood there, totally stunned by what he saw. He couldn't move at all. One of the giants reached out, grabbed a knight, and crushed him with his bare hand. The whole place erupted with screams. Everyone was freaking out. People started yelling for help, and blood was everywhere. The giants just stood there, acting like they were having the time of their lives, watching all the chaos. The giant just locked eyes on the knight, barely even blinking, smiling wide like he's enjoying it. Next thing, he goes straight for the knight and eats him. Honestly, the whole scene gives you chills. Things got wild that night. Someone tried to call for a retreat down the mountain, but people weren't listening. Panic took over, and everybody just bolted in every direction. The giants go all out, rushing in and ripping through the knights one by one. Their attack is wild, and the knights don't even get a chance to react before they're taken down. A knight hit the ground hard, caught by some giant dude. His brother totally lost it, yelling for him to chill, but the other guys held him back so he wouldn't just run in and get wrecked too. The soldier totally lost it, yelling for his big brother who just went down hard right in front of the giant. The ground was a mess, blood everywhere, and bodies scattered, making the whole place feel like an actual nightmare. Things were getting wild out there. Commander Peleus wasn't having it. He yelled for his guys to fall back, making it super clear this wasn't up for argument. When he gave an order, everyone knew he meant business. He hyped everyone up, telling them to think about their families waiting for them and what would happen to their village if they gave up now. He promised this wasn't how it ended. They'd get it together and come back stronger. The soldiers booked it straight for the trees, trying to get out of there fast. Meanwhile, Peleus called out to Falcon, putting him in charge of getting everyone out safely. Peleus glanced back at Subaru, who hadn't moved yet, and told him he needed to get out too. He really wanted Subaru to stay alive, hoping he'd be able to pick up the pieces and take on the giants when the time was right. Subaru cut him off, not messing around, and pulled out his sword. The blade started glowing red, and Subaru made it clear that line was his to claim. Subaru doesn't even hesitate. He heads straight toward the giants, moving the opposite way from everyone running for safety. Peleus just stands there, totally thrown off, not sure what this dude is even thinking. Subaru paused and told Peleus straight up that he couldn't go all out or move how he needed to with Peleus hanging around. He let Peleus know he had two options, dip right now or stay here and go down with him. Peleus wasn't having it at the start. He was loud about not leaving some random guy behind just to save himself. But Subaru just shut it down and made it clear he wasn't going to say it again. At last, the commander gave in, his voice shaky. He said he'd round up the rest of the guys and told Subaru to hang on until he got back. Helios sprinted off, yelling over his shoulder how Subaru had just saved him and asking him to be careful out there. Subaru stood there by himself, staring down these giants as they moved closer, their huge bodies and scary faces making the whole thing feel unreal. He charged straight at them, black sword in hand, letting everyone know without flinching that he was their new problem. Subaru darted around the giant's feet, moving way faster than anyone expected. Every hit he landed was on point, like he knew exactly where to strike. He dropped two giants fast, and right after, the system popped up with notifications showing he beat them and scored some achievement points. While he was in the middle of the fight, he couldn't help but think about how weird it still felt being the guy who had to stay back and take the hit, even if this was only a test. That sense of being the one left behind just never really clicked for him. Peleus paused and glanced back at the fight going on behind him. Sweat ran down his face. He was stressed out and honestly regretted leaving Subaru by himself. Things got real intense fast. Giants closed in around Subaru, blocking any way out. People watching the stream started calling it straight up suicide, saying there were way too many giants and just staying alive at this point wasn't going to cut it. Subaru's mind wasn't even on what was happening around him. He kept thinking about Peleus, remembering how he was supposed to die in the original story. But now, with how strong he'd gotten, Subaru started to believe he could actually save everyone and switch up how things were supposed to go. Both giants rushed at him together, but Subaru braced himself, ready to take the hit. He swung his sword fast and took down a giant in one shot. Right after, he got a notification saying he beat the enemy and earned some points. He kept swinging, even though the system kept popping up warnings about the cursed demon sword eating away at his stamina. Still, every time he pushed through, his fighting stats just kept getting better. Subaru tore through the giants, taking them out one by one. As he went, he kept thinking they weren't all that tough when he fought them solo. He started to get that the real issue wasn't winning fights, but how long his body could actually handle the sword's power before it gave out on him. He switched up his plan, trying to see more of the area so he could spot where the boss was hiding. Subaru launched himself up, bouncing off the giants like they were stepping stones, and started taking their heads off from above. He darts past the crowd, moving so fast the smaller giants can't keep up. He nailed a kick so hard it straight up smashed the giant's head. People watching online couldn't get enough of his insane moves in the air. This kind of fighting was totally Narukami Subaru's thing. While the fight was going down, Subaru's Wedge of Greed level 2 skill kicked in, helping him push back against the sword's side effects. He started noticing his HP and headspace getting back on track, and honestly, he realized just how much solid gear can change the game. Seeing that massive army of giants, Subaru knew exactly what he had to do. He needed to move fast and beat the boss before his body totally gave out. Out of nowhere, the giant boss showed up, rocking a creepy grin and eyes that just screamed danger. He started swinging his huge weapon around, ready to smash anything that got close. The monster raised his huge club, making Subaru look small in comparison, but Subaru didn't hesitate. He just went straight at him like he totally had this. Right then, Subaru knew he had to wrap this up fast. If he didn't take the win with one last move, he was done for. Subaru locked in and charged straight at the boss, throwing everything he had into it. He fired up his special shield move, Lightning Bolt, just hoping this crazy plan might actually pay off. Thunder crashed over everything, and out of nowhere, this huge streak of golden lightning ripped across the battlefield, lighting up the whole dark sky like it was daytime for a second. The electrical blast froze all the giants around, leaving them stuck in place. Subaru spotted his chance and dropped in from above, going straight for the boss, who was still trying to recover from what just happened. The boss totally lost it, yelling out and clearly hurting, hating on the humans hard. At the same time, Subaru drove his cursed sword right into the monster's neck, not letting up for a second. The blade was draining his energy fast, but he just kept going, locked in on finishing the fight. At last, the huge boss crashed down and didn't move again, totally done for. A system message popped up, letting everyone know the giant seed was finally down and the 5th survival stage was cleared. It called out how big of a deal this win really was. Right after, Subaru's phone blew up with notifications, letting him know he leveled up twice. His stats, strength, agility, all the important stuff, got a serious boost thanks to that insane win. Chat blew up as everyone started asking if anyone had ever beaten this boss. Turns out, nobody had. People realized this stage was never about fighting, so a whole new path just unlocked. Subaru checked himself out and realized he was totally wiped. He had always hoped he could finish a fight in one epic move, just like in the comics he read, but real life wasn't that easy. The clouds started to break up, and the whole vibe around the place shifted. The giants who were left just stood there, looking lost and not sure what to do now that their boss was gone. Subaru dropped to the ground, breathing hard. He realized the Wedge of Greed skill couldn't hold back the cursed sword's side effects this time. Even though Subaru finished the stage, he found out something that totally threw him off. The monsters were still hanging around since the rules said they wouldn't go away until the test timer actually hit 0. Subaru could tell things were about to get rough when the giant started waking up and staring him down again. The trick he pulled before wasn't going to work now. It actually messed things up for him this time. Things were looking rough. He was completely out of energy, and the giants started closing in, grinning like they were ready to jump him now that he couldn't fight back. Out of nowhere, right when one of the giants was about to smash him, this crazy black and gold lightning shot down from the sky. Lightning slammed right into Subaru, and then energy just blew up everywhere. The story jumps to a quiet spot way out in the woods. There's this old wooden cabin, and outside, a woman's just chilling, soaking up the sun. Shigure stepped out of the cabin, curious why she was chilling outside. She just told him the weather was too good to waste and the air felt super fresh. She glanced at him, chill smile on her face, pretty much letting him know that just soaking in moments like this was all they could do for now. Shigure stared out at the horizon, locked in on what she said. He knew she was right, time was running out, and they probably had just a year left, if that. Shigeru's face went serious, showing he knew it was finally time to wrap things up for good. Shigeru saw Rina glued to her phone again, totally spaced out, and thought to himself how she always does this whenever things start to get real. Shigure noticed she was glued to her phone and wondered what had her so focused. She just turned the screen toward him, showing exactly what she was looking at. She pulled up a photo on her phone, showing him someone wearing a mask. She let him know that the guy goes by Narukami Subaru. Shigeru's eyes went wide when he saw what was happening. He called out Subaru's name, but before he could say more, Rina cut him off. She shut it down fast, making it clear this wasn't the same Subaru they remembered. Rina pulled up the livestream and broke it down for him. This was just some streamer going by Narukami Subaru, taking on the second floor test. The guy couldn't take his eyes off the screen, totally caught off guard when he recognized those fighting moves. Rina looked at Shigure, letting him know she wasn't joking. She made it clear if Subaru had actually made it out of that mess alive, Kazuki wouldn't even be in the tower anymore. Shigure tried to figure out what she was really getting at. Rina gave Shigure this cold, tired stare, basically telling him straight up that Subaru was gone and it was time for him to move on. Shigure looked tired and just wanted to dip, hoping everyone would just drop it so he could bounce. Rina stopped him, pretty much calling him out and asking how much longer he planned to stay hidden behind that guy. Shigure shot back without any warmth, wondering why she was even watching the stream if that's really what she thought. Rina said she was just doing it because she was bored and had nothing better to do. Out of nowhere, her eyes went wide as she stared at the screen, catching Shigure off guard when he saw how she reacted. Shigure glanced at the screen next, and his eyes went wide. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, quietly staring like he was frozen for a second. Out on the battlefield, golden lightning exploded across the place, tearing up the ground and sending the giants flying everywhere. When the dust settled, Subaru was just standing there, sparks crackling around him. Out of nowhere, a system pop-up showed up on his screen, letting him know he'd just picked up the Thunder skill. Subaru stood there, eyes glowing red, as he got hit with 2,000 achievement points. The chat went wild, everyone hyped up, watching as he had to pick between going for another round or transferring out. Subaru just sat there, kinda thrown off, thinking this spot wasn't even where he was supposed to pick up the skill. Meanwhile, people online started dropping comments, saying beating that huge boss was actually the real way to unlock it. Subaru scrolled through the info on his rank A+ Thunder skill, noticing it burns through both his health and magic. While the giants took a breather to get their act together, he just took a second to be grateful he was still in one piece. Notifications popped up one after another, showing finished quests and donations stacking up into the thousands. He took a second to thank everyone for the support. His balance had just hit over 20,000, and that number really got his attention. He knew he couldn't just take those donations without at least showing some thanks, so he got ready to jump back into the action. The giants that were still standing let out this wild roar and charged straight at him. Subaru wanted to impress everyone, so he dropped 20,000 credits in one go to level up his Wedge of Greed skill. The system dropped the news that Wedge of Greed level 3 could now hold up against Thunder's crazy force. Subaru thought about letting all that energy loose through his whole body, but he played it safe and held back. He channeled all the lightning straight into his right hand, thinking this was just the right amount to handle without losing control. Subaru sprinted straight at the giants, not wasting a second, ready to take them all on. He grabbed the demon sword he'd never seen before, and right away it started buzzing with wild lightning energy, looking like it could wreck anything in its path. He lifted his sword up, ready to go all out like he used to back then. He swung the sword down hard, and a huge blast of red energy and lightning ripped straight through the enemy lines. Subaru was out of breath, sweat streaming down his face. He realized he messed up by not saving any energy for the trip back. He glanced around and saw giant bodies everywhere, then it hit him. He was totally wiped out from that last attack. He started to lose his balance, barely holding himself up with his sword stuck in the dirt. Out of nowhere, a bunch of armored knights came sprinting right at him. Commander Peleus saw Subaru dropping fast, totally caught off guard. He yelled for the savior and sprinted over, not wasting a second. Subaru's legs gave out and he dropped to the ground, completely wiped out and barely hanging on. Subaru spotted Peleus sprinting his way, looking totally freaked out. He couldn't believe the guy actually came all the way back and just shook his head, thinking how reckless that was. Right before he blacked out, Peleus managed to grab him, stopping him from hitting the ground. Hatsuka sat at the table, eyes glued to her phone, super tense. Behind her, the manager and Song Hyun just stood there not saying a word, both clearly confused about what was going on. The manager looked pretty serious, wondering if all this hassle was even worth it. Song Hyun just shrugged, letting him know that stuff about how girls think is way out of his league, so asking him wouldn't help anyway. Hatsuka dropped her head into her hands, totally embarrassed and stressed about how things were going. She knew this situation was just not it. Her cheeks started to go bright red when she remembered the message she sent. She kept thinking maybe it came off way too stiff and kinda unfriendly. She started thinking it was her fault for not making the message look better or adding something funny, worried he'd think it was just some boring word text. Song-hyun shot her a sarcastic question, wondering if she had a crush or something to be acting like that. That set Hatsuka off. She got heated and made it clear it was only a work message. But honestly, the real issue was something else going on in the background. Out of nowhere, she totally lost it, showing just how much of a hardcore fan she was before she ever thought about being his manager. Even now, she couldn't help but get all nervous around him. The manager tried to chill her out, but then it hit him. What really mattered was that thunder skill, the one only Subaru Narukami had before. Hatsuka was pumped to say the title was officially plural now. Song-hyun was pretty glad too, knowing they'd somehow managed to keep their paychecks because of what they found out. The manager paused for a second, thinking hard, and realized why nobody had figured out that skill before. He knew right then this guy was someone to keep an eye on. Out of nowhere, Song-hyun's phone lit up with a notification. She totally lost it, super hyped, because Subaru Narukami just checked out their email. Her excitement vanished almost instantly. When she saw that he had left her on read without replying, she just froze up, almost like she glitched out for a second. Her whole vibe changed, and everyone around her started whispering, feeling kinda bad for her. Somewhere else, Hawkeye set up in his high-tech studio, getting ready to go live. He's the guy everyone tunes into for breakdowns on how players throw down in matches. Hawkeye's got this crazy good eye for detail and knows streaming inside and out, so he always ends up beating the competition and locking down his spot at the top. He checked out a bunch of players' highlight reels and broke them down pretty well. Kurokatwa Amon, who just joined the Blue Zone, really stood out to him. This guy was kind of under the radar but was moving up the ranks crazy fast. Hawkeye scrolled through some pics of top players, noticing Kazuki from the OG Blue Eyes Guild in the lineup. Lately, Kazuki had been getting a lot of attention, and everyone seemed to be watching what he'd do next. Today, he was locked in on one thing, breaking down the legend that is Subaru Narukami. No matter what people say online or in real life, everyone knows the lightning move is all Subaru. The livestream kicked off and Hawkeye jumped right in, hyped to see everyone watching. He let his followers know they were about to deep dive into the player everyone couldn't stop talking about lately. Hawkeye sat down to check out the fight videos, telling his followers to chill and not jump to conclusions. But as the clips played, what he saw totally caught him off guard. Sweat started rolling down his face while he watched the screen, totally caught off guard by how locked in this player was. He noticed, pretty surprised, that this player just picked up the skill but was already using it way better than any normal person could. He let everyone know that Subaru's got the skill down tight. He puts just the right amount of energy into his sword every time, not wasting any at all. Hawkeye saw how clean every move was. Dude never slipped up once the whole fight. He started thinking about where this beast even came from, since barely anyone in the chat seemed to get just how wild this performance really was. Hawkeye straight up said he was sure this guy was gonna blow up and get famous, and he planned to keep an eye on him from now on. Right as he was about to wrap things up, he realized he nearly left out his quick closing thought. Hawkeye stared ahead, his eye lighting up, totally locked in. He was sizing up the new guy and, honestly, thought his control might even beat what Subaru Narukami had back in his best days. Inside the tower's break room, Subaru snapped awake in his bed, breathing hard. System notifications popped up saying the 6th stage was waiting to start, and all his tiredness was completely gone. Subaru called it quits for now. The system said he had to finish the last stage and be fully rested before trying again, which he managed. But even though his body felt fine, his head was still just wiped out. He picked up his phone and gave a quick thanks to everyone tuning in. Seeing the viewer count hit 742 had him low-key stunned. He couldn't believe that many people actually jumped in to watch. Subaru let his followers know he was taking a day off, saying he'd be back streaming the day after tomorrow. He wanted everyone to chill for a bit until his next stream. A message popped up saying Subaru Narukami had finished his stream, and he walked out of the break room. He headed straight to the waiting area. As he walked, he glanced at his phone and saw a new message pop up. Hatsuka from Sutton Entertainment's management had sent it, basically saying thanks for his time and letting him know to check his messages. The company wanted him to know they're all in for streamers and they've got the best profit deals around. Subaru stared at his phone, kind of side-eyeing it, not sure if it was some weird spam or what. The name Sutton Entertainment popped up, and honestly, it just sounded off to him. Subaru chilled outside at this old-school cafe, scrolling through his phone while sipping on his coffee. He scrolled through the info on Sutton Entertainment and found out it was this huge network running a bunch of streamers, dropping serious money to back them up. It hit him just how much things had changed. Now there were entire companies just for streamers. He figured out it was a big-name company that pretty much ran the entertainment scene. Subaru scrolled through the comments, seeing everyone go back and forth about Hawkeye's breakdown on him. Some dudes were arguing if Subaru was really Hawkeye's next target, and if a new guy could actually outdo the OG Subaru when it came to control. Others weren't buying it at all, calling out Hawkeye for being biased towards Sutton and questioning if he even knew what he was talking about. While scrolling through the wild comments, Subaru suddenly caught on that Hawkeye's actually teamed up with Sutton. Subaru's cheeks turned a bit red, and he just felt pretty proud of himself. In his head, he knew this analyst really knew how to spot skill. Outside the cafe, Isaac stood with his phone in hand, staring at the screen. He scrolled through Hawkeye's analysis, and his mood took a nosedive when he saw the part about the new Subaru possibly outclassing Subaru Narukami at his best when it came to control. He looked down on Subaru, thinking he was just some newbie who barely made it past the second floor. He was straight up furious, blaming Hawkeye and his constant analysis for everything. In his head, he swore he'd handle Hawkeye himself and make sure those sharp eyes never bothered him again after he got through this. Isaac walked into the cafe, shoving the door open, clearly annoyed. His day was already off to a rough start, and he couldn't stop grumbling about it. Out of nowhere, he noticed Subaru chilling inside. He couldn't help but smirk to himself, thinking, man, is this day actually cursed or what? No matter where he turned, Subaru just kept popping up right in front of him. Isaac moved with purpose, heading past Subaru, who was locked in on his phone at the table. He walked right into the table where Subaru was chilling, hitting it hard on purpose. The coffee went everywhere, straight onto Subaru's clothes, and Subaru jumped up quick when the hot coffee hit. Isaac tried to play it off like he messed up by accident, acting all innocent. When he finally noticed Subaru's face, he put on this fake, surprised look like he had no idea what was going on. Isaac stood over Subaru, grinning like he was trying to get under his skin. He pointed out how they kept running into each other lately, almost like the second floor was way smaller than it should be. He tossed out a half-hearted offer to get him another coffee, throwing in some sarcasm about Subaru always being broke and acting like Subaru should be thankful. Subaru just brushed it off and kept moving, not giving him the time of day. Isaac stopped Subaru in his tracks, making it clear he wanted him to chill right where he was. Subaru gave Isaac this icy stare that really got under his skin. Isaac couldn't stand being looked at like that. Subaru just kept it cool, reminding Isaac he'd already given him a heads up before, kind of questioning if Isaac was actually serious about messing up again. Isaac lost his cool and yanked Subaru up by the collar, looking at him like he was trash. He leaned in so close to Subaru that it looked like he was about to totally wreck him, just like he used to back then. This time, just shutting down Subaru's smug attitude wasn't going to cut it. Subaru barely looked at Isaac, just brushed him off and said he was busy. He grabbed Isaac's hand off his collar and pushed it away, not really caring about the whole thing. Subaru gripped Isaac's hand so hard that Isaac's face totally changed. He was surprised and it actually hurt, making him wonder if Subaru had always been this strong. Subaru backed off from Isaac, his voice straight up cold as he called this payback for the coffee. He tossed out a quick thanks for the drink and dipped out. Isaac totally lost it and started yelling at him to come back, but Subaru just kept walking out the door like he didn't care. Isaac let out a deep sigh, kind of annoyed, since all he wanted was to make it up the tower without causing a scene for once. Isaac clenched his jaw, barely holding it together, just thinking about Narukami Subaru and Hosoi Subaru. Those two really pushed him past his breaking point, and he was seriously heated. Subaru's eyes land on his tablet, and suddenly it hits him. There was something he totally spaced on. He grabs his phone right away, ready to text back whoever he left hanging. Somewhere else, Hatsuka was just chilling in the tub, messing around with a rubber duck. Out of nowhere, her phone buzzed with a message from Subaru saying they'd meet up soon. That instantly got her attention. The story jumped over to this gloomy underground spot where the exiled lizardmen were hiding out. The place was straight up nasty with monster bodies just lying around in the water. Subaru walked into the boss room, sword in hand, the blade glowing like he was ready to settle things for real. A message popped up saying the Wedge of Greed skill was holding back the wild kickback from the cursed sword. Meanwhile, Subaru was starting to feel like he was finally getting the hang of this new body. Out of nowhere, the dungeon boss Salamander showed up. This giant fire creature was all over the walls, making everything shake with its insane roar. Subaru wanted to play it safe this time, so he took things slow while messing with his thunder skill. He tried to get a handle on how far he could push it without messing up like before. He started building up his energy, kinda curious about just how much power he could actually push out. He charged up his legs with lightning, boosting his speed, and dashed straight at the monster, moving quick and smooth. For a split second, as he got ready to throw his punch, the way Subaru looked now lined up perfectly with how his Phantom used to be. Thunder energy rushed straight into the blade of the cursed sword, making it give off a wild, intimidating vibe. Subaru moved insanely fast, cutting right through the fire and air, and crashed straight into the monster's attack. System alerts popped up saying Wedge of Greed couldn't handle all the thunder's kickback, but the skill still leveled up. Even though it hurt, Subaru just kept going, not backing down for a second. He went all in and cut right through the salamander, energy blasting everywhere as he finished it off. The system let everyone know the dungeon was cleared and Subaru just leveled up. His strength, health, and magic stats all went up, so he was basically buffed and ready for whatever's next. Subaru left the dungeon and started making his way back through the dark forest. He was kind of surprised that he wasn't as tired as he thought he'd be. He looked at the fatigue index and saw it hit 61. That meant he could push the energy up a bit without risking too much, but he couldn't shake off this uneasy feeling in the back of his head. He stared at the upgrade cost for the Wedge of Greed skill, 40,000 credits. The amount was wild, and knowing he'd need double that just to level up felt brutal. It honestly just seemed way too expensive. He let out a long sigh while he walked, really hoping someone would just show up out of nowhere and hand him a solid job so he could finally stop stressing about money. Out of nowhere, Subaru picked up on someone standing right in front of him, asking if he was heading out to hunt. He stopped right where he was. He looked over and spotted Isaac coming out from the trees, that evil grin on his face. Isaac walked straight toward him, looking like he owned the place. Isaac, sounding both sarcastic and a little scary, pointed out that he and Subaru had been around each other forever, but Subaru still somehow managed to catch him off guard. Subaru shot him a cold stare, thinking this guy just wouldn't give up and was honestly getting on his nerves. Isaac had been thinking this over for a while, but his anger just kept building up until he couldn't hold it back anymore. That's when he decided he had to go after him. He stepped up, looking like he was ready to handle business right then and there, making it clear he wanted to finish things for good. Subaru just stood there, totally unfazed, with a little sarcastic smirk like he'd already seen this coming, or maybe he just couldn't be bothered to care. The story jumps to nighttime in the city. Hawkeye is out there by himself, just strolling down the street. He heads straight into his go-to cafe, the one he always hits up. Out of nowhere, he caught someone calling his name. He spun around and spotted the Sutton Company manager chilling right behind him, saying he'd finally tracked him down. Hawkeye and the guy grabbed seats at a cafe. Hawkeye noticed it had been a minute since he last saw him, and the manager, curious, asked how his streaming gigs were going. Hawkeye just grinned and told his manager the views aren't dropping, probably because everyone's pretty much got the same face on screen. The manager just chills with his coffee, saying how going slow and steady is actually the safest way to level up and keep things solid long term. Hawkeye sets his coffee down, eyeing his manager and wondering what's really up, since he knows this meeting isn't just about grabbing a drink. The manager gets straight to the point, wanting to know if Hawkeye was for real when he hyped up Narukami Subaru yesterday. He looks dead serious, like he needs the truth right now. Hawkeye, just chilling with his coffee, straight up knows that Rookie's got some insane skills. Honestly, even better than what Narukami Subaru had when he was at his best. He catches himself, eyes lighting up as he shoots a serious look. He makes it clear that getting up the tower and reaching that level is a whole different game. The manager sees how sharp Hawkeye is and can't help but smile. Right then, he lets it slip that he wants to bring this rookie into the agency. Hawkeye just laughs, giving props to his manager for spotting something smart. Still, he can't help but mention how Subaru's views and clout are actually pretty small, especially for a company as big as Sutton. The manager sets his cup aside. After hearing how confident Hawkeye sounded, that's when he really knew for sure. He lays out his plan. He wants to team up with Hawkeye and Subaru. His goal? Get his name out there and boost his view count. The manager grins, looking pretty sure of himself now that it's just him handling this plan on his own. Out in the middle of the dark forest, Subaru's standing there, looking straight at Isaac. Isaac starts messing with Subaru, acting like surviving the dungeon was just luck and nothing special. He figures Subaru probably dipped out fast just so he wouldn't get hurt. He walks up, giving him that look that says, "Don't get ahead of yourself." He basically lets him know, don't start thinking you're actually Narukami Subaru, and definitely don't start dreaming about picking up the Thunder skill like he did. Isaac's temper goes off the charts as he grabs Narukami Subaru's shoulder hard. He's got zero patience left and basically tells Subaru that if he's actually dead, he should just stay in his grave and not make a scene. Isaac's eyes are straight up red, and you can just tell he's got bad intentions. He's not even hiding how annoyed he is, basically thinking that anyone named Subaru just knows how to push his buttons. Subaru lets out a heavy sigh, realizing how messed up it is that his time is ending right when everyone else is just copying him. Subaru makes up his mind to just ask the guy straight up why he hates him so much. He wonders if it's really just the guy's name that's the problem, kinda thrown off since everyone usually thinks that name is cool. Isaac loses it and starts yelling right in his face, throwing out the whole "do you even know who my dad is?" thing. Subaru just stares him down, not impressed at all, and starts questioning why Isaac keeps bringing up his dad every single time they talk. To Subaru, it's just annoying and doesn't even matter to what they're actually talking about. Isaac drops his dad's name. Reinhardt, and Subaru's brain just lights up. He instantly remembers that Reinhardt isn't just anyone. The guy's a top-ranked player on the 9th floor. Subaru suddenly remembers the name One Strike Swordsman and just freezes for a second, totally surprised. He remembers the wild moment when the whole tower went nuts after some unreal news started going around. Everyone was talking about how Narukami Subaru, this new guy from Earth who showed up out of nowhere, just took down Reinhardt, one of the top players from Runeterra. The fight ended super quick, just one hit, and it was over in under half a minute. He can still see Reinhardt yelling at the top of his lungs, blood everywhere, still pushing himself to keep fighting no matter what. He dropped right into the crater Subaru made, totally wiped out. Back in the real world, Isaac totally loses it, yelling at Subaru and basically flipping out over him, saying that name like it's nothing. Subaru finally gets it. Isaac doesn't actually hate him. It's all about Isaac's dad losing his title, not anything Subaru did. Suddenly, everything clicks for Subaru. Subaru shoots him a cold, pissed-off look, basically letting him know just how much crap he's had to deal with, all because of this dude's pointless grudge. Isaac totally loses it, yelling at Subaru to shut up if he's just gonna talk trash, and you can see fire starting to build around him like he's about to throw hands. Isaac just goes off, showing everyone his fire powers. He's clearly done with talking and basically tells Subaru to quit wasting time and just get out of the way. With the fire raging all around, Isaac just loses it, yelling at the top of his lungs about how much he can't stand Narukami Subaru. It's so bad it actually makes him sick. He keeps going off, pretty much hating on Subaru for getting all the hype even though he's just a regular dude. He's annoyed that Subaru acts like he's better than everyone else and blames him for making the guild leaders act stuck up too. Isaac stands in the middle of the flames, grinning like he's totally locked in. He's clearly enjoying himself as he watches the people who used to act all high and mighty get what's coming to them. For him, seeing them burn feels like karma finally catching up. He throws a huge fireball straight at Subaru, pretty much saying Subaru's luck just ran out the second he got that name. The attack goes off and the whole place just blows up with smoke and fire everywhere. Isaac covers his face with his hand, pretending he actually feels bad about messing up the power control. Deep down, he's just being sarcastic about what happened to his friend, not taking it seriously at all. Isaac stared at his hand, the skin burning and raw, but his mind was already locked in on what came next. He was done playing around. The only thing on his mind now was taking out that masked streamer. No hesitation, just straight up business. Out of nowhere, he catches a voice coming from inside the flames, asking which masked guy he means. Isaac spins around, surprised, just as the fire splits right in front of him. Subaru walks out of the middle of the flames like it's nothing, not a scratch on him. He's just holding his mask in one hand, staring Isaac down with this icy look, basically letting him know he's talking about this mask. Isaac's eyes go wide. He can't believe what he's seeing. He just stares, kind of frozen, thinking there's no way this is actually happening. Isaac totally loses it. He can't wrap his head around how Subaru just took that fire head on and didn't even get hurt. Subaru just charges in out of nowhere and lands a solid punch right to Isaac's face. He throws some shade, calling Isaac a bratty kid and basically asking if getting hit like that messes with him. Subaru doesn't let up for a second. He throws a heavy punch straight into Isaac's side, making Isaac double over with pain. Subaru slams his opponent down hard, and Isaac can't help but let out a yell. The pain is on another level. Isaac stumbles, blood coming out of his mouth, totally thrown off by how someone so weak managed to mess him up this badly. Subaru stands over Isaac, who's down on the ground, and tosses out a quick riddle, basically challenging him to figure out who he's actually facing right now. He takes off his mask and wants to know if the guy in front of him is Hosoi Subaru, the kid he used to mess with and make cry, or if it's Narukami Subaru, the masked streamer everyone knows online. Out of nowhere, his eyes light up, throwing in another option. Maybe it's Narukami Subaru with those blue eyes. Isaac struggles to get up, coughing hard, but he's not falling for any of these mind games. Right away, he realizes Subaru is basically saying he's the streamer. Isaac steadied himself, his energy kicking back up. He started thinking the thunder skill wasn't all that special, especially if someone like Subaru could pick it up. He shapes his hand into sharp, burning claws, looking at Subaru like he can't believe the guy actually thinks he stands a chance right now. Right then, Isaac started bragging, acting like if someone weak could pick up this skill, it just proved he'd gone way past what Narukami Subaru ever did. Isaac charges in, throwing out a wild, blazing attack. He gets right up in Subaru's face, basically trying to prove he's the top dog here. Subaru doesn't waste a second. He's locked in, swinging his sword so fast it's almost a blur. In just a split second, he slices right through and chops off Isaac's hand. Isaac's whole face changes. He's completely caught off guard. Subaru walks up to Isaac, looking him dead in the eye. He shuts down Isaac's answer without any hesitation and honestly can't believe how off-base Isaac's explanation is. It's wild to Subaru how Isaac can just say stuff that's nowhere close to what's actually going on. Isaac freezes up, his eyes snapping over to Subaru. He can't believe what he's seeing. Something's definitely off, and it hits him hard. He thinks back to what Subaru said before, how all that hate was just because of his dad's name. Subaru wanted him to realize just how much pain someone like weak Hosoi Subaru had to deal with, all for something that small. Subaru pressed his sword right up to Isaac's neck. Isaac just froze, not expecting that at all. Subaru was straight up furious, making it clear that talking trash about his friends again was not going to fly. Isaac just freezes, eyes wide, barely whispering as it finally sinks in. Standing right in front of him is Blue Eyes Narukami. Subaru cuts him off, making it clear he's done messing around and things just got serious. Subaru moves quick, taking down Isaac in one clean shot. Isaac stumbles, blood everywhere, barely holding himself up. Subaru lets him know he's done more than enough for him. Subaru walks away from the burning battlefield, not even glancing back at Isaac's body. In his head, he just thinks this is payback for using his body earlier. Now it cuts to a totally different vibe inside this chill, quiet cafe. One of the workers is eyeing Subaru from across the room, kind of tense, low-key wondering if this guy is just another hardcore Narukami Subaru fan lurking around. She starts thinking it's all her fault, especially since he looks like he's busy live streaming right now. While all this was going on, Subaru was deep in thought about his streaming game plan. He knew keeping his real face hidden was a big W, since it stopped anyone from figuring out who he really was. Hatsuka walks up to him, looking a bit stressed about running behind schedule. She gets a little red in the face, kinda shy, while letting him know she's the one he reached out to. She tries to play it cool with a nervous smile, letting everyone know she's Hatsuka, the one running the show here. Subaru steps up and shakes her hand, letting her know his name, Narukami Subaru. She lights up right away, super hyped that she gets to meet him. She looks at his masked face, totally caught off guard by how much he looks like the legendary Narukami Subaru. For a second, she wonders if Subaru somehow pulled a comeback and showed up out of nowhere. She can't help but stress, thinking maybe he's covering his face because he's not even real. Out of nowhere, Subaru's voice broke through her thoughts, catching her off guard for a second. He sounded pretty loud, and it threw her off just enough to snap her out of her head. Hatsuka remembers her boss going off on her, telling her she had to nail that first impression and make the client trust her. She was supposed to come off as reliable, but now, thinking back, she knows she blew it right from the beginning. That realization stings. Subaru couldn't take the quiet anymore, so he just straight up asked if she used to be into the old Narukami Subaru. She replies right away, totally hyped, letting everyone know she's a diehard fan. Subaru tries to chill her out, telling her he's not actually the real deal. He also notes she looks younger than him, just keeping it honest. But then she totally catches him off guard and says she's a fan of his as well. She tells him, all hyped up, that she's been there since day one, even before anyone else was watching. She was the first to see him beat the bat, get through Greg's challenge, and then pick the lightning trial without flinching. That's when he really caught her attention. Subaru can't believe how spot on her memory is. He starts wondering if she actually was the first person to watch, since she remembers stuff he barely even remembers himself. Under his mask, he grins, thinking back to how clueless he used to be at the start. He's honestly impressed that she was paying attention to him back then. Hatsuka tightened her fist, totally convinced this was fate. Without wasting time, she went straight to the company and asked them to make her his manager. She pulls herself together, choosing to keep it cool and act professional so he'll start trusting her. She pulls out the contract she already had set up and starts breaking down what's in it. She explains how it'll help them make ads and clips from the streams, all to boost the value of the Narukami name. Subaru wonders what he's supposed to do back. She just tells him to keep streaming like he always does. That's all they want from him. Subaru can't help but be surprised at how chill the streamer gig looks. She goes on to break it down for him. It's all because he was the first one to nail the lightning skill, and now everyone at the company, even the department head, thinks he's kind of a big deal. Subaru flips through the papers, checking out what they say, and looks over at her to see if she thinks everything looks good or if there's anything off. Hatsuka totally takes his question the wrong way and thinks he's talking about whether she's good enough. She starts getting all mixed up, saying everyone else is way more dependable and knows what they're doing. But before she spirals, Subaru jumps in and clears things up, letting her know that's not what he meant at all. Subaru watches her carefully, picking up on the crazy energy around her, and starts thinking there's no way a regular business manager should be this skilled. Meanwhile, she's totally panicking inside, convinced she's about to get exposed. Subaru clocks what's really going on right then. Seeing that aura around her, he gets it. Every enemy coming up is going to be way tougher. There's no chance to chill. He knows he's got to keep moving, no breaks. Hatsuka's sitting in the cafe, her cheeks bright red from all the pressure. She's stressing hard about making sure she comes off as super reliable and professional, but her mind keeps running wild, worrying that Subaru might just turn her down. It gets so intense that she actually starts thinking about what she'd do if she had to straight up force him to agree. Out of nowhere, Subaru showed up right in front of her and reached out for a handshake. She totally freaked out, almost jumped out of her seat and let out a panic noise that made zero sense. All that calm she was trying to hold on to, gone in a second. Subaru sits down across from her, totally chill, and lets her know he's counting on her to have his back for whatever's coming up. Hatsuka looks down at his own hand, noticing how his eyes shine behind the mask. Instead of playing it cool, she totally loses it, grabbing his hand, crying, and freaking out way harder than anyone expected, almost like she was the one who needed help the whole time. Subaru fired up the live stream, and right away the screen showed the broadcast was live. The viewer count jumped straight to 703, and the chat started blowing up with people saying what's up to Narukami and dropping questions about the mask. Right away, Subaru clocks how many people are watching. He instantly connects the dots. This huge crowd has to be from all the hype Hatsuka built up and the promo push before the stream. He grabs his phone, all focused, and gets ready to kick off the 6th stage. This one's called The Legend. Rain poured down hard at night, turning the whole camp in the forest into a dark and moody spot. Water smacked against the tents and the weapons stacked nearby, making everything look even more intense. Inside the main tent, a bunch of armored knights circled up around a big table, checking out some plans. Out of nowhere, Commander Peleus wanted to know where the savior was. One of the knights just isn't buying it. He's side-eyeing the whole thing, saying there's no way he can trust someone who isn't a knight. To him, the idea of some random outsider showing up out of nowhere and taking down the huge leader solo just doesn't add up. The knight still wasn't buying it. He told his teammate that if Peleus didn't see it firsthand, there's a good chance he got played. He started wondering if that monster was actually the boss or just some random minion. Peleus loses it when he hears his guys talking like that about the person who saved him. He calls them out hard, not letting their disrespect slide. Right then, the tent flap pulled back and Subaru stepped inside, with Peleus's right-hand man walking in after him. The aide had this grin on his face, letting everyone know the savior was up and had just shown up. Peleus spots Subaru and heads straight for him, looking hyped to see him. He's moving around on his own now, no help needed, all because of Subaru. The other knights kept their eyes on Subaru, not really buying into his whole vibe. They quietly pointed out how he didn't seem tough at all, and that the mask he wore just made him look even more Sus. Subaru catches the way they're eyeing him. There's some serious shade in those looks. He can tell they're not buying the story about him taking down the monster, or maybe they just can't handle the truth. Not one to back down, Subaru faces them straight on, calling out their disbelief without holding back. He thinks back to when Hatsuka told him she tweaked the mic settings so only the stream could hear his voice. She mentioned how clutch that is when things get dull like this. Subaru, meanwhile, seems pretty impressed with how the tech works. Subaru gets pretty ticked off at how they're treating him, especially since he's the one who helped them out. He can't believe how rude they're being. Meanwhile, the livestream chat starts roasting the knights and hyping up Subaru, telling him not to sleep on them. Dale, this older knight with a gray beard and serious vibes, steps up and reaches out to Subaru. He's looking pretty official, showing respect and gratitude right from the start. Subaru goes in for a handshake, but the old knight's grip is way stronger than he expected. As they talk, the knight's eyes look heavy, and he explains he tried to protect the village, but in the end, nobody made it out. Everyone got wiped out. Subaru looks at him, totally thrown off by the word trampled, wondering what he even means. Dale just stares back, his face going cold and intense, and tells him it was that guy who did it. Subaru locks eyes with Dale, totally serious, wanting to know if there's anyone out there tougher or more dangerous than the giant boss he just took down. Dale doesn't even hesitate. He just nods, looking sure of himself. Dale starts telling this old legend, laying out how the real giants once fought the gods way back, but in the end, they all got sealed away and vanished. He notices that the giants hanging around this place now are just weak versions of the real giants from back in the day. He quickly catches himself, realizing with a bit of dread that the leader who showed up after the giant Subaru took out wasn't the same kind of threat. This new guy was on a whole other level, almost matching the legendary giants from old stories. He's honestly stunned that someone like that is still around today. People in the stream chat start freaking out, trying to figure out if this is the level 8 boss and how anyone's even supposed to beat something like that. Subaru stands his ground, making it clear they've got to take that thing down, no other option. Dale just smirks at how cocky Subaru sounds, tossing out a sarcastic look like he's not buying it. The knights glance over at Subaru, clearly uneasy. One of them, trying to keep it cool, points out that they have no choice but to ask for help right now, but what they're asking for is just not going to happen. He points out that these guys are only talking tough because they've never actually come face to face with it. Peleus suddenly loses it, yelling about some old legend tied to Millennium Mountain. He says there's a piece of lightning hidden up top and honestly thinks Subaru's the only guy who can actually find it. Memory brings up a wild scene from back in the day. Fire tearing through everything, people sprinting everywhere, straight up chaos as everyone scrambles to dodge the giants and stay alive. In the middle of all this chaos, this massive dude with long hair showed up. He looked like he owned the place, just standing there with this wild vibe as everything around him was trashed. He turned his attention straight to his son Vidal. The knights are scrambling, doing everything they can to hold him back. One of them totally loses it, yelling for him to chill, but the giant just snatches the guy up with one huge hand like it's nothing. The giant stared down, eyes cold, and just squeezed the knight in his grip until he stopped moving. He barely reacted, just said he was planning to send his son Vidal off next like it was nothing, while blood kept dripping down. From way up above, far from the giant, Subaru's golden eye lights up as he checks out everything going down below. The chat is going wild, everyone freaking out over how massive this thing is, dropping comments about whether it's actually a real giant or just some crazy fake. Subaru jumps on his horse and takes off fast through the pounding rain. It hits him hard that this test isn't just tough, it's legit trying to take them out. Subaru starts thinking back to what the knight said before. Peleus mentioned the giants were showing up in 3 days. They basically told him if he couldn't figure out the lightning by then, he should just dip and save himself. Subaru keeps pushing forward on his horse, heading straight for Millennium Mountain. In his mind, he knows he needs lightning power if he wants any shot at beating the giants. Right now, it feels like that's his one way to make it out of this alive. A pop-up shows up right in front of him, asking if he wants another shot. He shuts it down instantly, totally sure of himself, letting everyone know there's no challenge in this tower he can't handle. Subaru catches himself dropping a classic old-school line without even thinking about it. Right away, the chat goes wild, calling him out for acting too cocky and saying they've all heard that line before. Requests start showing up for him from the viewers, and Safe Origin throws in 3,000 credits. Subaru chills out a bit, realizing he didn't totally blow his cover even though he messed up what he said. He grabs the reins and takes off, pushing his horse hard through the pouring rain and messy ground. He pulls up at the base of the mountain, hops off, and checks out the rocks. He's sure this is where the lightning fragment's stashed. Subaru puts his hand on the cold rock wall, just staring up at how massive the mountain is in front of him. He remembers talking with Peleus about the lightning fragment. Peleus had told him it comes up in old stories, but nobody really knows what it actually is. Some say it could be a weird power, others think it might be some kind of tool, or maybe even a person. The whole thing just stays a mystery. Subaru thinks back to when he asked about getting it, but Peleus just said all they really know is where the mountain is in some old legend that's been passed down. Peleus knew for sure now. The person who had the lightning before was the one who wiped out all the giants. At Hatsuka's place, he couldn't hold back. He straight up started jumping around his room, fired up because the contract finally got signed. Her boss was on the phone, cracking up and saying how Hatsuka finally seemed like someone he could count on. Meanwhile, she was straight up vibing in the office, doing a little dance to celebrate her win. Hatsuka was on the phone, kind of hyped, thinking maybe she was finally getting some props. Her manager brought up wanting to talk about a meeting with Hawkeye soon, but she didn't stick around. She just ended the call fast. Hatsuka heads back to her room, flops onto her bed, and grabs her phone. After grinding all day, she figures she's earned some chill time, so she pulls up the live stream to kick back and relax. She grabs her phone, eyes lighting up, totally into it. For her, watching the stream on her screen was cool, but actually seeing it live, that just hit different light peak fan moment next level hype. Subaru pops up on the screen looking super confident and basically letting everyone know that every challenge in this tower is easy for him. Hatsuka's eyes go wide, and her smile slowly disappears as what she just heard really sinks in. She suddenly noticed that what she just said was actually a really old saying, like something from decades ago. That got her mind spinning, and now she couldn't stop second-guessing herself. Up on the mountain, Subaru just goes for it and smashes his fist into the rock, not holding back at all. People watching are honestly questioning if he's lost it, or if he's just that desperate right now. Subaru keeps smashing his fists against the rock wall, almost like he's trying to prove something to the whole mountain. He's not backing down, just going at it non-stop, determined to see if he can outlast the mountain itself. Chunks of rock break off as energy lights up around his fist every time he smashes into the mountain. Out of nowhere, a huge crack split the rocks and they broke apart. Subaru just grinned, clearly pumped that he finally found what he was looking for. Everyone online seemed pretty surprised by how jacked Subaru looked handling things. But in his head, he knew the real power didn't even show up on camera. Nobody ever said brute force was off the table, and Subaru was just making it clear. Subaru stands out in the pouring rain, feeling this wild energy pulling at him, almost like the lightning in the sky is talking straight to whatever spark he's got inside. He ends up standing in front of this massive metal gate, covered in old carvings. It looks like whatever's behind that door is where all that power's coming from. Everyone watching the stream kept talking about how huge the door looked, and trying to figure out how to open it without a key. Subaru didn't overthink it, he just figured he'd break it down instead. Subaru turns on his Wedge of Greed skill at level 3 to tank the recoil, and at the same time, lightning starts building up in his fist, getting ready for his next move. Black and gold energy started swirling around his hand, and Subaru could tell the real challenge was coming up. He knew he had to step up and go where the power was pulling him. He locks in, channeling everything he's got as the lightning basically yells at him in his head. He steps up and, without hesitating, throws a heavy punch straight at the metal gate, making it clear he's not backing down. Golden energy burst out everywhere, lighting up the whole area and blasting out with a crazy loud boom. The huge gate slid open, showing a long, dark hallway behind it. Subaru steps into the mountain like he owns the place, totally locked in. The guys watching him online can't believe how strong he's gotten. They keep saying he just doesn't slow down. He heads into a new section, and suddenly a system alert pops up, letting him know he's on the path of lightning now. It tells him straight up there's no leaving until he finishes the stage. Inside the camp that night, things were pretty tense. The leaders sat around the table, deep in discussion. One guy couldn't help but question whether Subaru would actually pull off getting the lightning. Meanwhile, Peleus just sat back, looking totally relaxed and sure of himself as he sipped his drink. Peleus shoots a confident smile, looking totally sure that Subaru's got this. He points out that this stranger already showed how strong he is, so there's really no reason to question him, even if everyone else is kinda uneasy about trusting someone from outside the group. One of the knights suddenly barges in, looking absolutely terrified. He starts freaking out, saying it doesn't matter if the guy gets the lightning or not, everyone's done for either way. The knight shoots to his feet, sweat running down his face. He yells right at Peleus, who's just standing there, totally clueless about how bad things really are. That night, he can't shake off what he saw, the giant's insane power back in the village. Seeing it in person hit different, and now he knows for sure that whatever monsters got going on is on a whole other level. Peleus steps in, trying to steady him. Even though things look rough, Peleus makes it clear they can't just sit around and let things fall apart. They have to keep pushing no matter what. Peleus tells everyone to trust this young hero, the guy who's out there giving it his all for them, no strings attached, just this one time. The knight just stares at him, eyes wide and freaked out, blood running down from where he bit his own lip. To him, saying stuff like that comes easy for Peleus. Out of nowhere, the cup slips off the table, and right then, the whole vibe in the tent shifts. All the knights sense the ground shaking hard like it's a serious earthquake. A soldier suddenly rushed into the tent, yelling that things had gone south fast and whatever they were dreading had finally shown up. Peleus and the knights just freeze, totally silent, as the news drops on them. Subaru kept moving through this empty cave, all rock and shadows, trying to figure out what this test actually wanted from him. Everyone watching picks up on how the whole area is just empty. No monsters, nothing in the way. It throws them off since they totally weren't expecting it. Subaru's golden eye lit up, catching on how lightning moves way too fast for anyone to actually see. He figured out that before it even strikes, it's just a bunch of electric charges floating around in the air, so it actually made sense to him. He figures out this test isn't about what you can see, so not seeing anything actually makes sense. Subaru shuts his eyes, and it finally clicks what path where lightning walks really means. He starts noticing this intense lightning energy deep inside, like it's straight up calling him over and dragging him in hard. Out of nowhere, Subaru crouched down, picked up a rock, and chucked it hard straight into the cave. Everyone behind him was kind of confused, not sure what he was up to. In his head, Subaru realized whatever he was sensing wasn't coming from the stream. There was lightning all around that you couldn't even see, just hanging in the air. The rock started breaking apart almost instantly, zapped by all the electricity in the cave. As Subaru moved further into the cave, the lightning started going wild every time he tossed a rock. Each rock just got zapped, broke apart, and the dust disappeared in all those crazy sparks. Subaru stood in the middle of this rough, rocky hallway, just taking all the chaos around him. Out of nowhere, invisible thunderbolts started slamming down all over the place. The people watching the stream were totally thrown off, trying to figure out what kind of wild test this was and why they kept hearing these intense sounds when nothing was actually there. Subaru finally got what was really going on. Even though he knew things were about to get rough, he just accepted it and kept going. Deep down, he thought this whole test was seriously messed up. Subaru rushed straight into the cave, figuring out that this whole thing was probably set up to see how long he could last. The rules were pretty harsh. He had to tough it out or he was done for. Walking down the hall, he suddenly saw a donation pop up on his screen, someone dropping 100 credits just to clown him and ask what he was scared of. Subaru kept pushing forward through the electric field, while his chat went wild with quests and donations. Someone dropped 1,000 credits on him. Another guy tried to warn him that his lightning boost could run out, and then someone else hyped him up with a 2,000 credit donation. Even with everything going sideways, Subaru made sure to show love to everyone who had his back with the quest rewards. You could see he was locked in, eyes fired up and ready to keep pushing. Somewhere far away, things were calm. Inside a cozy wooden cabin, a pot bubbled on the stove. Shigure just chilled on the couch, taking it easy. Out of nowhere, Reina walked into the room. He got startled and instantly hid the device as soon as he noticed she was there. Reina shot him a sneaky grin, acting like she already knew what was up. She wanted to know why he'd stashed the device, throwing in a playful accusation that he'd been watching stuff he shouldn't. Shigeru struggled to get his words out, trying to play it cool and saying he wasn't hiding anything, just that his eyes were tired. Still, Reina looked at him like she wasn't buying it. She dropped down next to him on the couch, tossing out a sarcastic comment about hair growing faster if you do certain stuff. Shigeru totally lost it, yelling right at her to chill with the weird comments. Reina grabbed some bread and started snacking, trying to act like she'd actually quit watching the stream because he wanted her to. But honestly, she just couldn't help herself. Shigure looked at her, wondering what she was even doing here. Reina shifted to face him, clearly not impressed by how tense he looked. She wondered if she was the reason he couldn't just chill out. Right then, Subaru's voice popped up from his phone, saying he'd tough it out and give it his all. Shigure just lost it out of nowhere and started yelling right in her face. He clearly thought she was coming at him for no reason and wasn't having any of it. Rina covered her ears, annoyed that he yelled so loud it almost hurt. Meanwhile, Shigure quickly tried to stash his device, acting like nothing happened, and made sure his phone was on silent just in case. Rina gave him a weird look, clearly surprised by how stubborn he was acting. She started thinking he was kind of a weirdo. Rina stood up from the couch, looking totally over it. She said she was done with this annoying situation. Shigure, kind of on edge, wanted to know where she was headed. Shigure didn't want her to leave, so he kept trying to get her to stick around. He offered her some bread, even suggested she could just chill and lie down for a bit, basically doing whatever he could to keep things looking normal and not draw any attention to himself. Rina walked out and shut the door, so Shigure just let out a huge sigh, honestly super relieved he didn't get busted. Shigeru pulled out his tablet and started watching Subaru's livestream. He thought to himself that if she ever found out he was tuning in, she'd totally flip out and probably wouldn't chill for a second. Honestly, he didn't even want to think about how wild it could get. Shigure stared at the screen, his face kinda down, thinking to himself that no matter what, the real Subaru wasn't the type to ever forget about them, even if things were totally flipped. Subaru popped up on the screen, breaking down how brutal the test was going to be. Shigure caught himself smiling, realizing the streamer still talked and acted just like the Subaru he remembered from back in the day. Subaru gave his followers a quick thanks for all the rewards. Watching this, Shigure thought to himself how Subaru used to be different. Back then, he wasn't so focused on chasing credits like he is now. Shigure let out a quiet laugh, not really sure what was going on. Out of nowhere, someone put a hand on his shoulder from behind. Shigure spun around and saw Rina right there, staring him down with this creepy smile. She looked straight at him, icy as ever, basically letting him know she'd caught on the whole time. Rina's face twisted into something straight out of a nightmare, letting him know she saw right through him. He was nowhere near ready to pull one over on her. Inside Millennium Mountain, a system message popped up, telling Subaru to make the path of lightning. He was locked in, sweat running down his face as he tried to stay focused. Subaru stood right in the middle of the wild storm, lightning going off all around him and even hitting him straight up. As all that chaos happened, the progress bar barely moved, creeping up to just 2.3%. Subaru reached out, his hand crackling with lightning. The energy felt super familiar, and he knew right away this wasn't his first rodeo with lightning. He'd been through this a bunch of times in his past life. Subaru pushes forward, barely making any headway while the electric storm rages around him. Behind his mask, his eyes stay focused, but when he checks the progress bar, it's only at 3.2%. He knows he's got a long grind ahead, and it's not letting up anytime soon. Every time he moves forward, the lightning gets stronger, almost like the storm is leveling up just for him. Meanwhile, the chat on his live stream is blowing up with people totally confused about why he's not booking it, and some are begging him to just finish already so he can stop getting zapped. Subaru's body was beat up and barely holding on, so he just tuned out the chat. He knew he wasn't going to be able to keep up with comments anymore, not with how rough things had gotten for him. Subaru reaches out toward the buzzing emptiness, thinking that making it to the end is just something he's supposed to do. He's not just trying to make it through, he's got bigger plans. Energy starts buzzing around him, and in that moment, he decides he's going to turn this whole thing into something way bigger than what anyone else even thinks is possible. The story jumps to this fancy office. Hawkeye's posted up in front of a bunch of screens, all tuned into the stream. He thinks back to when President John talked to him about teaming up with Narukami Subaru. Hawkeye starts to wonder how long it's actually been since he's seen John run a project himself. Whenever he thinks back, John always remembers his own golden rule. In the world of streaming and entertainment, putting in the work is just half the game. The rest really comes down to how people rate you and where you stand. Hawkeye jumps in, full of himself, saying that what really matters for clout is which family you're from and which players are around in your time. John's on board with what he's saying, but he calls out something important. Narukami Subaru's streams don't really feel like he's just chatting with fans. They come off way more like the vlogs you'd see from experienced players. John points out that even though Subaru's new to streaming, all Hawkeye really has to do is just show his regular stuff, but with some commentary for the viewers. John's eyes lit up. He thought this could be one of those chances that just don't come around twice. He told Hawkeye to jump on while things were taking off, like catching a wild trend before everyone else does. Hawkeye's eyes light up with big dreams when he pictures himself standing out next to Subaru, both of them getting noticed together. He remembers those rough days when everyone said he bailed because he didn't believe in himself or think he could make it up the tower. But deep down, he was fired up, wanting to be better than anyone else, he just couldn't show it. He pictures himself just staring up at the sky full of stars, thinking about what it'd be like to actually be up there with him. He stretched his hand out into the open, staring off and wondering if he could ever level up to those legends he always heard about. Doubt sat heavy on him, and deep down, he couldn't help but feel a little down about it. The young man snaps back to real life, totally freaking out when he spots what's on his screen. He gets so rattled, he nearly wipes out of his chair. He watches the screen, eyes wide and sweat dripping down his face. He can't believe what Subaru just pulled. It's so wild he starts yelling at his monitor, seriously wondering if this dude's even alright. Subaru's in the cave, and out of nowhere, lightning just slams into him hard. The pain's unreal. It's like the whole place goes straight to hell. Subaru stumbles, blood streaming down as non-stop blasts keep hitting him. His body gets wrecked, and he's pushed way past his limits. Even though the pain was brutal, Subaru slammed his foot down hard, not letting himself go down. He kept pushing forward, stubborn and locked in, just refusing to quit. Subaru finally gets what this test is really about. The crazier the lightning gets, the more it pushes right through him. With electricity crackling all around him, he figures he's got enough power built up to finally pull off the move he's been planning. Suddenly, these glowing lines started showing up inside his body. The system broke it down. His tiniest meridians, even the Ren and Du channels, were getting charged up, filled with lightning. The energy kept building and moving until it finally hit his heart, making it light up from the inside. The progress bar suddenly shoots up to 20.7%. On the screen, a neural map of Subaru's body pops up, showing energy moving through him. The system lets everyone know that his micro-meridians are starting to activate. Energy starts to show up around him, almost like you could see it in the air. Then, a message pops up, letting him know that lightning is now inside his body, and his magic stat just went up by 1. Subaru grips his glowing fist, locked in and ready to do whatever it takes to get this power under control. Subaru reminds himself that the Ren and Du channels are like the main highways running through the body, and the micromeridians are the tiny side roads that connect everything together. Subaru moves through the storm, feeling pumped up from head to toe. Now that his micromeridians are open, his energy just spreads everywhere inside him, reaching every spot. Subaru figures out that Hosoi Subaru's body never went through micromeridian purification before. Now, he's basically forcing it by blasting himself with lightning, trying to speed things up. Because of that, he ends up with a new problem. Electric shock shows up as a negative status. Normally, people clean out their bodies with their own mana, and it takes a while. But when someone uses outside lightning instead, the process speeds up a lot. Still, the pain hits way harder than anyone expects. Subaru stumbles through the storm, his whole body shaking non-stop. Blood hits the frozen ground as he tries to push through the pain, barely holding it together. Back in her dark room, Hatsuka sat glued to her phone, eyes wide, totally locked in on the livestream. She couldn't pull her attention away from what was playing out on the screen. She spots what Subaru's actually up to, and her eyes go wide. She can't believe he's really out here trying to mess with micro-energy meridians, especially in this sketchy spot and in such a reckless way. She realizes trying to move her body by counting on something outside herself, instead of using her own mana or energy, is basically insane. She puts her hand on her head, clearly on edge. The pain hits so hard, most people wouldn't even be able to sit up. They'd probably black out over and over from how intense it is, but she's still hanging in there. Even though dying in the test doesn't mess with real life, she's totally sure that the pain Subaru's dealing with right now is legit, like he's actually living it for real. She bites her lip, totally unsure and anxious, trying to figure out why he'd push things this far. The story cuts back to Subaru. The system shows he's already past the halfway point on unlocking those micro-meridians. His foot, still wrapped up in lightning, keeps pushing forward, slow and heavy, but he's not letting up. The pain hit Subaru so hard that his mind started slipping. He began seeing things that weren't really there, and all he could think about was how it was all on him. The guilt just piled up, and he couldn't shake the idea that he was the reason everyone was gone. The scene switched from the electric cave to a wild snowstorm, and he suddenly remembered standing in front of his crew, acting way too confident. Back then, he was hyping everyone up, always saying every challenge could be beaten no matter what. He pictured his old crew, Shuhei, Soya, Ki, Yori, even Shiguri and Rina, all standing behind him, grinning like they knew he had this in the bag. He remembered how cocky he'd sounded, telling them not to stress. Even now, he was sure he'd come out on top. That memory started blending into what was actually happening, and Subaru just kept beating himself up over it. He was sure if he hadn't said those wild things before, none of this would have gone down like it did. If he hadn't pressured everyone to take those risks because he was way too cocky and full of himself. If things had gone another way, everyone could have walked out alive that day. Nobody would have had to go down like that. Out of nowhere, Kazuki showed up right in front of him, face messed up with blood, and that annoying smirk on his face. Kazuki was totally roasting him, making it clear they blew it, and saying it was all because they got too full of themselves. Lightning flashes all around as Subaru stands in the middle of the storm, yelling out. He's hurting bad, and it's clear he's blaming himself for everything that's gone down. He drops to the ground, totally wiped out, his hand shaking as he reaches for the empty space in front of him. Even though his body's done, his head won't chill, just replaying those images non-stop. Out of nowhere, everything flips. Subaru is just strolling through this bright field, sun's out, sky's clear, and he's straight up confused about where he even is. A light breeze messes with his hair as he spots a bunch of people chilling under a huge tree way off in the distance. His eyes go wide as he starts to realize who's in the room. Shuhei, Soya, Ki, Yori, even Shiguri and Reina. They're all just chilling together like it's no big deal. Subaru rushes over to them, hoping hard that everything he went through, the nightmare, all the dying, was just something he dreamed up. He glances over at his friends, grinning big even though his eyes are watery. Right then, he knows this is real, like, for once, everything actually feels legit. He rests his hand on his buddy's shoulder, trying to calm himself down and convincing himself that what he just saw was just a wild nightmare. He wants his friends to hear him out about what kind of dream it was. One of them calls out his name, Subaru. Out of nowhere, his teammates' faces twist into something straight up creepy, almost like a nightmare. They start yelling at him, blaming him for everything and making it clear they think it's all his fault they ended up like this. One guy makes it even worse, saying he never wanted things to end this way. Subaru backs away, totally freaked out, barely able to say their names because he just can't believe what's happening right in front of him. Shino showed up in front of him, looking wrecked and beat up, and started going off on him. She called out all those big promises he made about being a hero. Then, with this hurt look, she wanted to know why he didn't keep his word and protect everyone. Subaru sees her face, all twisted and creepy with one eye popping out. He's just frozen, barely able to say her name, totally freaked out. Everything around him just went wild. His friends' bodies and lost souls circled him, and flames started tearing through the place. The air was filled with screams, everyone desperate and scared out of their minds, basically begging for their lives. Subaru was in the middle of it all, totally freaking out, overwhelmed by guilt and mental stress that just wouldn't let up. Subaru's face is straight up wrecked with fear as he yells out, his hands stretching toward the fading shapes of his friends floating off into the distance. He's desperate for them to stop and not leave him behind. His voice just disappears into nothing and he drops to the ground, totally defeated. Nobody hears him. His last desperate cries just fade away, leaving him alone. Subaru snapped back to the cave, dropping to his knees and gasping for air, blood dripping from his mouth. It hit him that everything he just saw was just a wild hallucination from trying to open those micro-energy meridians, and he barely dodged a mental breakdown that could have wrecked him for good. Suddenly, a system window pops up showing that the micro-meridians are almost fully purified, 97.87.87% done. The thunder finally chills out inside his body, giving him one more magic point. Meanwhile, Subaru's in his head, seriously annoyed at whoever came up with this wild test. Subaru pushes himself up while all this wild energy crackles around him. Deep down, he's kinda grateful for that weird vision, even if he's not showing it, since it just reminded him why he's still hanging on, no matter how tough things get. Yellow lightning started crackling all around him. Right then, he caught what looked like a ghostly image of Kazuki, just standing there with a grin, almost like he was looking right at his rival in the mirror. The view jumps over to the village, and everything's just wild. Giants and monsters are charging straight into the arena, wrecking everything in their path. The villagers and knights are either running for their lives or desperately trying to fight back, but honestly, it looks rough for them. Out of nowhere, this massive giant shows up, built like a tank and looking straight up scary. He towers over the wrecked buildings, making everyone freeze up with fear. The knights freeze up when they see what's in front of them, not wanting to believe this thing is actually the boss. Reality starts to hit, they're stuck here, and it feels like the masked guy ditched them when they needed him most. While everyone was freaking out, one of the knights leaned over to his buddy, barely holding it together, and tried to convince himself that their hero was coming back. He just needed something to hold on to. Commander Peleus steps in, clearly ticked off at his squad. He calls them out for doubting the guy they picked to protect their whole village, even though none of them actually knows who he is. Peleus stares them down, eyes cold and full of disappointment. He's not even trying to hide how let down he is, basically calling them out in his head like, do these guys even deserve to be called knights? Dale puts his hand on Peleus' shoulder and makes it clear to everyone, before pointing fingers, they need to remember that keeping this village safe is their main job. He pulls out his sword, and this blue energy starts glowing from it. He knows what's up. Knights aren't the ones needing backup, they're the ones who step up and protect everyone else. Dale charges straight into the fight, hyped up and ready for anything. He's all in, pushing his squad to go all out and show what real knights are made of. Peleus and the rest don't hesitate. They're right behind him, yelling and getting everyone fired up for battle. Back in the test, Subaru's almost done. He's at 99% on the system. The yellow lightning around him gets way stronger, basically wrapping him up even tighter. Subaru sees this glowing golden ball just hanging in the air in front of him. He doesn't really get what it is, but something tells him this is what he's been looking for. The end of the test is right there. His fatigue hits 97, and even though blood starts leaking from his eye under the mask, he keeps going, forcing himself to take that one last step. Subaru goes all in, launching himself straight at the target with a huge leap. He knows the system keeps blasting red warnings, telling him to chill out and recharge, or it could get dangerous, but he just blocks it all out and keeps pushing. On the village battlefield, a knight stomped into the scene, armor clanking. He was locked in, ready to go head-to-head with the giant boss. Dale, even though he's way older than everyone else on the field, moves way faster than anyone expects. He ducks around the monster's swings, barely giving it a chance to land a hit, and gets right up close with his sword ready. Dale throws a quick, sharp hit, and blue energy lights up behind him as he moves. The giant lets out a loud yell as Dale just keeps going, slicing through the monster with moves that show he really knows what he's doing. Peleus saw his shot and just told Dale to back off. He was all in. He sprinted straight at the stumbling beast, not holding anything back. Peleus launches himself way up, catching some serious air. He locked his eyes on the giant's weak spot and lined up his sword to strike. Peleus locked in and finished things off, cutting through the giant's body with a bunch of fast, powerful swings. Every hit was packed with pure energy. The beast lets out one final roar as its blood splashes everywhere, then its huge body crashes to the ground, totally done for. The soldiers go wild, everyone hyped that Sir Peleus and Sir Dale actually took the beast down. They're yelling and celebrating, pumped up about the win. The soldiers ran straight at the giant's dead body, stabbing it over and over, clearly ticked off and wanting payback. While they did it, they called the giant all sorts of names and hyped up Sir Dale and Peleus for what they'd just pulled off. Out on the battlefield, Peleus finally relaxed when he saw the giant lying dead. He figured Dale's warning about something worse was over, so things should be chill now. But then Dale cut in, sounding way more serious than before, and made it clear that they couldn't let their guard down yet. Peleus stared at him, totally caught off guard, while Dale, looking super stressed, let him know the monster they just took down wasn't even the real target. In the back, the rest of the soldiers were just chilling, cracking up, and patting each other on the back. They thought it was pretty easy, mostly because Sir Dale and Sir Peleus had pretty much carried the whole thing. One of the soldiers was hyped up, going on about taking out the last of the small giants and wrapping things up. Out of nowhere, a massive hand dropped from the sky and smashed the soldier along with the ground, leaving the spot covered in blood. Peleus and Dale just stood there, completely stunned. Dale couldn't move, his eyes locked on the huge monster that had just shown up. That was when he knew. This was the real deal. Peleus's voice shook as he yelled out, letting everyone know this giant was on a whole other level than anything they'd ever dealt with. While the lightning test was almost maxed out at 99, Subaru reached out through all the wild golden sparks, trying to grab the energy ball. He clenched it in his hand, his eyes burning with anger. In his head, he was dead set on making his enemies pay no matter what it took. Right then, the system popped up and said he'd hit 100%. Subaru stood there in the middle of all that crazy energy, staring down Kazuki. He didn't back off. He was locked in and basically promised he'd take Kazuki out and keep his head as proof. Golden lightning shot out and lit up everything, blasting the whole place with a crazy bright glow. Subaru stood there, out of breath, barely holding it together. He muttered to himself, relieved that everything was finally done. A bunch of notifications popped up, letting him know he'd finished Micro Meridian's purification. Now his magic hit way harder, skills kicked in 20% faster, and all his stats just got bumped up by 2 points. Subaru was tired and annoyed, thinking about how close he was to dying during the test. He couldn't believe the system didn't give him a heads up before things got that serious. Subaru crashed onto his back, flat out on the busted-up ground, totally wiped. Right then, the system popped off, saying he'd crushed the 6th stage, the legend. At the Sutton Company office, the manager stared at the screen, totally locked in. He could see Subaru's health stats dropping fast, and he knew the guy was really pushing himself way past his limit. The manager sat there, tapping his finger on the desk, and finally just accepted that this kid wasn't cut out for streaming. Out of nowhere, his phone started buzzing, and when he picked up, it was Hawkeye calling. Hawkeye sounded hyped, asking if he'd caught Narukami's stream because things apparently went wild. The manager tried to get Hawkeye to chill and share why he was so hyped. Hawkeye didn't hesitate, he just said straight up that this kid was going to blow up and become a real star. Hawkeye kicked back in his chair, talking about how he was locked in on making it big both as a player and as a streamer. He mentioned he always saw the original Narukami more as a player than just someone making videos. He said this was what everyone was asking for, a version of Narukami that's pretty much just like the original. Turns out, the real legend wasn't some streamer, he was actually a straight-up warrior. The manager just sat there, totally caught off guard, as Hawkeye dropped his final take. According to Hawkeye, everyone in the room was watching Narukami basically get a fresh start as a player. He jumped in, hyped up, pointing out that all of this was going down live, right in front of everyone. On the live stream, Subaru started getting back on his feet. The chat blew up with people freaking out about how fast he bounced back and the fact that he was still kicking. Subaru struggled to get up, holding his head and feeling totally wiped out. He couldn't help but be annoyed at how tired he was. He pulled up his status window and saw his fatigue drop down to 81. Seeing that number drop, he realized his fatigue goes down when his stats go up. Even after that last unexpected hit, he felt like the result wasn't too bad. As he finished each mission, his phone kept lighting up with notifications from viewers, dropping him different amounts of cash. Subaru checked his balance and saw he had 20,420 credits stacked up. He thought that was pretty solid. He checked out the skill store and saw the Wedge of Greed upgrade needed 40,000 credits. His balance was nowhere close. Looking out at the huge monster waiting outside, he figured if he could beat that thing, he might finally get enough credits for the upgrade. Subaru stared down at the glowing gold ball in his hand and knew right away this was the one thing that could actually take down that monster. Out of nowhere, an info box popped up showing the lightning spear. This weapon was straight up legendary, made from real ancient lightning, and you couldn't trade it. It only let you use one huge attack, then it would vanish for good. Subaru just stood there, eyes glued to the ball, barely believing what he was seeing. He knew stuff like this never showed up down here. It was the kind of thing you'd only find way up on the higher floors. And honestly, calling it a spear right now didn't even make sense, since it looked nothing like one. He pulled up his inventory, reminding himself that the top-tier gear could switch forms if the right stuff happened. Meanwhile, people in the comments were low-key curious about how he even knew these tiny details. He decided it was time and headed straight for the cave exit, moving with real confidence. He was locked in, ready to finally face whatever was waiting out there. Outside, Peleus looked straight up, totally freaked out. His face was drenched in sweat, like he'd just run a marathon, and he couldn't take his eyes off whatever was happening in the sky. Something huge moved over the nights, blocking out the light. Then this giant eye showed up above them, just watching. Dale could barely handle it. The pressure was insane, and it made him let out a groan. The massive giant tilted his head back and looked up. The system window popped up, and everyone saw who he really was. Giant King Greg, the guy known for swallowing thunder and showing up with this wild, almost evil grin. One of the warriors totally snapped and just bolted, laughing like he'd lost it. Peleus started yelling after him, trying to figure out what had just happened. The warrior spun around, tears running down his face. He couldn't help but throw some shade at his teammates, basically letting them know they had no clue what was really going on. His voice was shaky, but he made it clear they were way out of their depth. The warrior dropped to his knees right in front of the giant's huge foot, freaking out and trying to convince the giant he wasn't like all the other clueless people. He dropped to his knees, forehead pressed to the dirt, totally embarrassed, hoping the beast would go easy on him. The giant stared at him, and while that happened, the warrior just started calling him God. The giant's eye lit up, staring him down with pure anger, almost like he couldn't believe someone would put him on the same level as those bugs he hated. Dale rushed up behind the warrior, grabbing him and trying to snap him out of his panic. He forced him back onto his feet, pretty much yelling for him to get it together. Dale started pulling the warrior back, yelling for everyone to get out of there fast, but then he just froze, eyes wide, completely stunned. Peleus panicked as he watched the giant's hand slam into the ground, right where Dale had just been standing. Peleus just kind of slumped, thinking there was no shot at winning this fight. Peleus froze when it hit him. There really wasn't any way out. Giants closed in on the village from all directions, trapping everyone inside with no way out. It was like the whole place got locked in by a wall of giants, and the humans couldn't see any escape. Peleus totally panicked and started yelling, desperate to save himself. He blurted out that he actually knew who took out the giant's son, and claimed he knew everything about what really happened. The giant king paused and stared him down, eyes cold and serious, demanding to know who did it. Peleus' hand shook as he raised his sword, aiming it toward one spot, pretty much saying that's where he saw him. He straight up made up a story, telling them the human who took out the giant's son went that way, supposedly to get even stronger so he could wipe everyone out. Peleus stood there, sword shaking in his grip, just hoping the beast would buy it and head the way he was pointing. Deep down, he was basically holding his breath, wishing everything would go his way. The giant walked up to him, face looking straight up intimidating, and just called him out right away. It was obvious he'd been caught lying. He looked the guy dead in the eyes, his own eyes almost lighting up, like he could spot every lie. He knew the dude wasn't fully honest. Then he pressed him, wanting to know if the killer was actually not around. Peleus started shaking, sweat running down his face, as the giant stared him down and questioned if he'd just swung his weak sword without thinking. Just as things are getting interesting, a wild burst of lightning tears through the sky above the mountain behind them, stopping everyone in their tracks. The giant and Peleus both whipped their heads toward the mountain, eyes wide as they tried to process what just happened. Thunder crashed up on the mountain, lightning blasting the peak so hard the whole ground started shaking under their feet. Peleus, barely holding it together, called out to the savior, hoping he was still around and could get them out of this mess before it was too late. Subaru stood at the edge of the cliff, looking down at the battlefield below. Suddenly, a system alert popped up, letting everyone know the 7th stage called Lightning was about to kick off. Standing up there, Subaru knew this was the last challenge he had to beat. The chat blew up as soon as everyone saw how massive the monster was. People started saying there's no way this thing is just some regular second-floor boss, and even told each other to run for it. But Subaru knew straight up that running wasn't on the table. He had to stand his ground and deal with it. Subaru didn't bother overthinking it. He just locked in, sure that if he could land even one good hit, it'd all be over. He stared at the glowing ball in his hand, knowing there was no way he could beat a monster this big head-on with what he had. If he wanted a shot at winning, he needed to take it out before it even got the chance to move. He lifted his hand up, getting ready to fire up the lightning spear. Sparks started snapping all over the place, letting everyone know he was about to get serious. Out of nowhere, a huge beam of gold light shot up, tearing through the sky, while the energy for the spear started building up, slow and steady, and he was totally locked in. When the activation hit 10%, Subaru's fatigue meter shot up to 84. His whole body started hurting bad, like he was trying to hold back some crazy power and it was way too much. Even though the level 3 Wedge of Greed skill tried to handle the wild kickback, the system made it clear it couldn't hold up, and the effect barely did anything, only hitting about 33% activation. The pressure on Subaru kept getting worse, and he could feel himself getting seriously tired. His fatigue shot up to 88. Blood started dripping from his hand and even through his mask. Right then, he had to admit to himself he just wasn't ready for a legendary tool like this. Once activation got to 50%, he just had to tough it out. His followers could tell he'd been struggling non-stop ever since he got the lightning power. It was like watching the same rough moment on repeat, and everyone knew it hurt. Down below, the giant caught that crazy bright light up top. People watching online started joking, like even someone who can't see would spot that. The whole moment was so obvious, nobody could miss it. Subaru knew deep down they were right. After showing off that much power, it would honestly be weird if the enemy didn't spot him. The activation was already up to 78.5%. The giant moved his head, eyes landing on Subaru up at the top where the light came from. He stared him down and, with a cold, harsh tone, called Subaru out as the one who took out his son. The giant realized who took out his son, and his face twisted into something scary. Without wasting a second, he started moving straight at Subaru. The giant didn't even look at the knight standing there. He just started heading straight for the mountain. Peleus tried yelling, hoping to get the giant's attention and make it clear the knights were his real opponents. But the giant just kept moving, acting like Peleus wasn't even there. The beast kept moving, wrecking everything in his path. Peleus watched, frozen, as he suddenly got it. The villagers were about to be in real trouble because a bunch of other giants were heading straight for them too. The giant stomped around, each step making the ground tremble. His voice sounded rough and hurt, and everyone could tell he was mad about his son Vidal. He thought back to everything his son had gone through and knew he couldn't just let it all mean nothing. He kept smashing through everything in his way, trees, rocks, whatever, just charging straight at Subaru. The giant let out a roar that echoed everywhere, making it clear he was ready to bring all the pain back to the person who took out his son. His eyes locked in, full of pure revenge. Up top, Subaru kept an eye on the giants getting closer. The lightning spear was almost ready, already at 88.5%, and sparks were popping off everywhere around him. Subaru sized things up fast. He knew he only had a 50-50 shot at nailing it. Meanwhile, everyone watching couldn't believe how anyone could pull this off with that kind of speed and power. They also knew that if he messed up, it'd be game over right away. Subaru zoned in on his target, locking his eyes and tuning everything else out. In his head, he kept reminding himself it was all about either landing it or missing, and he remembered that tip about never losing sight of what you're aiming for. Right then, his mind flashed back to his buddy giving him that same advice, looking dead serious. Subaru remembered exactly what his buddy told him. It all starts from that spot when you throw the spear. He knew he couldn't lose focus for even a second. He thought back to what he learned about not overthinking stuff, like whether to throw straight or go for a curve. It clicked for him. He didn't have to guess what the other guy would do. Looking back, he could still picture that teacher's grin, the way he just told him to stop overthinking stuff like the spear's weight or how it was supposed to fly. The teacher always said Subaru wasn't like everyone else on the field. His buddy snaps him back, letting him know he's actually Narukami Subaru. As the system updated, it showed the lightning spear was almost ready at 95.2%, and energy started building up around the weapon. Subaru faced the giant beast, his mind racing as he tried to figure out his next move. With all that pressure on him, he struggled to get his head straight. Right then, Subaru thought back to what his teammate said ages ago. The guy made it clear this isn't just some regular spear you toss. He told Subaru not to just yeet it like normal, but to set it off and let the real power go wild. The giant king charged at him, moving way faster than anyone expected. Meanwhile, the chat blew up. Everyone was freaking out, asking why Subaru was just standing there and not tossing the spear already. People wanted him to hurry up before things went south. Subaru just zoned out all the chaos around him. He kept his eyes glued to the target, quietly reminding himself to hold off a bit longer. The giant kept moving closer, looking more intense by the second. Subaru just stood there, calm and steady, like he wasn't even fazed. Anyone watching would probably wish they could keep it together like he did. At last, the prep bar hit 100%, and the system let him know everything was set and good to go. Subaru knew this was it, no second tries. He had to end it in one shot, and messing up wasn't even an option. The beast was right up in his face, jaws wide open and ready to end it. Subaru knew it was now or never, so he went all in for one final move to finish things. Subaru threw the spear, and it straight up turned into this huge blast of golden lightning. The beam blasted straight through the giant's head, tearing it up with serious power. The whole place suddenly shook as a huge blast went off, sending sparks and energy flying everywhere. Right before everything ended, the giant's eyes shot wide open when he realized what was happening. He managed to say his son's name, Vidal, knowing he wasn't getting out of this one. Subaru walked out through the dust and smoke, calm like nothing happened. Everyone watching the stream just froze. Nobody expected him to actually land that shot. People online started calling it wild and legendary. A notification popped up letting everyone know the thunder-eating seed was finally taken down and the 7th stage was cleared. Subaru's level shot up 3 times and his strength got a solid boost, going up by 2 points. His stats went up. Agility, vitality, focus, and magic power all got a boost. He also stacked up 5,000 achievement points and picked up the Thunderheart item. Subaru stared at the glowing gold jewel in his hand, trying to figure out if this was actually the Thunderheart he was supposed to find. Out of nowhere, a strong pain hit him hard, making his whole body tense up. Everything around him started to get blurry, like he couldn't focus on anything. He suddenly ended up in this weird spot with a purple sky and water under his feet, staring at his own reflection and trying to figure out where he was. He sensed something huge and unknown hanging out behind him, and it totally caught him off guard. Subaru wanted to get up or say something, but nothing happened. His body just wouldn't listen, and no sound came out. He was totally stuck, frozen on the spot. All of a sudden, a bunch of weird system pop-ups started showing up around him. Every single one kept flashing the same creepy warning. Something out there was watching him, and he had no idea what it was. Subaru just stood there, sweat dripping down his face, totally locked in on the darkness in front of him. His mind was racing, trying to figure out what was even going on, and if those weird things were trying to send him some kind of message. Out of nowhere, everything around Subaru snapped back to normal. He was standing there with the Thunderheart in his hands, and it was glowing like crazy. Above him, the clouds started to break up, and the sky looked way clearer. A message popped up, letting him know the main event called Thunder was kicking off. Now he could use the Thunderheart to look around the village for any clues. While Subaru just sat there totally still, everyone watching the stream started getting curious about what was going on. Then, right before anyone could figure it out, a notification popped up and cut the stream. He'd passed out again. Subaru chilled at the edge of the cliff, eyes on the clear sky. He kept replaying what he'd just seen, half convinced it was just some wild movie moment pulled straight from the system. He got up and kind of acted like he was saying sorry to this fake crowd in his head for passing out. Before that, people in the comments were messing around, making jokes about how he always blacks out during that one test. He picked up his tablet without showing any emotion, ready to claim the credits and rewards he just got. Subaru looked over what he'd earned after that tough fight, watching system pop-ups roll in, each one letting him know he'd cleared another mission. He saw credits dropping into his account, 3,000 from Safe Origin, another 3,000 from a different sponsor, and 1,000 more tacked on. His balance shot up to 40,120 credits. Meanwhile, he was still standing there, beat up and covered in blood, barely catching his breath. Comments started blowing up, with some followers asking to check out the Thunderheart and others telling him to head over to the village. But Subaru was totally spent. His face said it all. He held up his phone, looking wiped, and let everyone know he was running on empty, dropping a quick goodbye. Some viewers weren't too happy about him ending the stream early, but he just wrapped it up and logged off. Right after, the blue system window popped up, letting everyone know that Narukami Subaru had just wrapped up the live stream. That was it. The big test was over. Inside a fancy restaurant, things felt way more chill. Subaru sat across from Hatsuka, just soaking in the vibe. His manager kicked things off by giving him props for absolutely crushing the test earlier. Still, Subaru couldn't help but worry about how he ended the stream out of nowhere. His manager wasn't fazed at all. She let him know that ending it like that wasn't just fine, it was actually spot on. Hatsuka was practically glowing, super excited as she told him, smiling wide that their stream had pulled in over 3,000 viewers yesterday. She looked at him, kind of surprised he hadn't caught that crazy number during the fight. Subaru kept it cool, barely looking up from his coffee, and just told her he'd been so locked in on the test that he didn't even notice the counter. Hatsuka got a bit thrown off, trying to explain she was actually complimenting him, but deep down, she was kind of shook at how he could just tune everything out and zero in on the fight like that. Hatsuka got her confidence back and started telling him how hitting over 3,000 viewers as a newbie streamer was a huge deal. She pointed out that ending the stream right when he did was clutch, and even the tired look on his face worked out for him. As she kept thinking things through, she realized Subaru ending the stream right then was basically like cutting off a show right when it gets good, the kind of move you see in dramas to keep everyone on edge. Hatsuka, not missing a beat, wondered if Subaru did that on purpose. Subaru laid out his plan, saying he'd check out all the rewards and prizes with everyone watching during the next stream. He wanted his reaction to be real in front of the chat, not some fake setup. Hatsuka was honestly impressed at how smart he was about it. Hatsuka checked him out, clearly impressed and pretty satisfied. She could tell he totally got how things worked, and honestly, the old manager's concerns were just extra. He'd already gone way past what anyone thought he'd do. Out of nowhere, she set her hand on the table and shot him this sneaky grin, letting him know she'd brought him something today. Subaru was caught off guard and looked at her, trying to figure out what kind of gift she was talking about. Hatsuka shifted in her seat, totally owning the moment. She shot him a look that said she was serious, like she had something big up her sleeve. As she explained, she made it clear this gift wasn't just some regular thing. There was no way he could turn it down.
Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole, spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork, and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Webtoon Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.